environment. While coming to the business, you learned a lot in your first semester business organization management like sole trading, partnership, joint stock company, etc., etc. While coming to the environment, it is nothing but macro aspects of the economics like national income, per capita income, gross domestic product, fiscal policy, monetary policy, capital markets, share markets, etc., etc. So, already you have an idea on business environment subject in your first semester in the form of business organization and in the form of business economics. Today, our main focus is on 1991 new economic policy which made our economy as developing economy from underdeveloped economy. We faced a lot of problems with late receiving of independence in the year 1947. Later on, we struggled to become a developing nation by keeping in mind many drawbacks of our society. With this, today I would like to introduce the subject business environment. You can see on the screen that first step. You can add two more words also. I will explain what is these steps. In business environment, if you understand this step, a full form of step, you can feel ease about this subject today. S stands for sociological aspects, T stands for technological aspects, E for economical aspects, P for political aspects. I want to add two more, cultural as well as ecological. What all these, if you understand in an economy, social aspects, technological aspects and economical, political, cultural and ecological, it means that you can understand your business environment subject in wonderful manner. See, come to the present. You are enjoying smart life. Every student are using smartphones. You are most of the times you are enjoying in that. You are buying electronic gadgets, apparels, whatever you want, everything you are getting from offline mode and online mode. See, is it right or wrong? See, we never think of any problems like shortage of foreign exchange, which is in short called forex. Simply you are buying from national and international markets, you are buying from international suppliers. It means that you are importing goods instead of using our domestic goods. Whenever you are buying goods from international market, we are supposed to pay to the seller in the form of dollars. But we have Indian rupees, we are using Indian rupees. Who will pay on behalf of us? Our government has to pay forex to other countries or foreign countries. But now we are in 7th position by having $442.583 billion of forex. But the situation was quietly different, opposite during 1980, between 1980 and 90. Yes, what we are enjoying today is the result of 1991 new economic policy given by Dr. P.V. Narasimha Rao and Manmohan Singh. What is the need to study new economic policy? Come back to 1947 when we got independence. Later on we suffered with separation from Pakistan from India, and in 1950 planning commission was also introduced. Almost 7 plans before 1991, 7 plans were introduced successfully. But during 1980 and 90, we felt a need of technology upgradation. Why we need technology? To link India with the rest of the world. So, here I want to create a background idea why we need a new economic policy. See, almost 25 years over by when we implemented this new economic policy 1991 to 2019, almost 28 years over, but still we are calling it as new economic policy. We will see why we are calling it as a new economic policy. There is a box on the screen. See that in that a cover is there. In that cover some water I kept. See, if we drop this cover in a pool of water, is this water mixed with remaining water? Yeah, definitely no. Why? Why? Because this water is covered with a plastic cover. See, Indian economy also up to 1991 like this packet, like this cover. Water in this cover is covered, restricted, protected. I want to say India also had a restricted and rigid economic policies before 1991. About almost 43 years after independence, we followed this restricted, protected economic policies which kept our economy very low or underdeveloped. So, before 1991, what was the situation in our country? We must understand our international debt raised to 50% of GDP. Almost we are supposed to pay 40% of revenue only to redeem those debts along with our interest. Our fiscal deficit in 1991 reached to 6.6% of our gross domestic product. See the situation, GDP growth fell down from 10.5 to 1.4 during the year 1991. This slide can show the real situation or economic condition of a country after attaining 43 years of independence. See when to what is the way or when to change our economy, then this is continuous slide for previous slide. Before 1991, situations in our country like this. Inflation reached high at 14%. Imagine now we have almost 3.5%. By that time it was 14%. See inflation, you know very well, hike in prices of commodities. Second one, rupee value depreciated by 26.7%. Forex resources also fell very deeply. Why I am talking about forex? Foreign reserves or foreign exchange reserves are required for us at least to buy crude oil, petrol, diesel, which are very important for our transportation. For this reason we need forex reserves. In order to procure forex reserves, by that time Indian government went for pledge or mortgage of 20 tons of gold to State Bank of India, and 47 tons of gold was pledged with Bank of England to raise a loan of $600 million, particularly foreign exchange. This is the situation in our country before 1991, before we introduce this new economic policy. Come to the next one. These factors culminated into an economic crisis in June 1991. A strong advice was received from World Bank and also International Monetary Fund and other developed nations which can assist us to improve economically in the form of LPG. Don't ask what is full form of LPG, a BSc student. They will say liquid petroleum gas. But in our commerce, the full form of LPG is liberalization, privatization and globalization. See, already I said our economy was protected, rigid in nature. It did not have any flexibility, but in the form of liberalization, privatization and globalization, we can move from underdeveloped to developing nation. What is this liberalization? What is this privatization? What is this globalization? See, in liberalization, we are going to be avoid license Raj. In privatization, we gave priority for private people by reducing the involvement of central government. In globalization, we linked our country with the rest of the world. See how beauty it is. Up to particular 1991, we have a rigid and protected economy. With the implementation of liberalization, privatization and globalization, we moved towards this one. Who are the leaders behind this new economic policy? See, there are two people. One is Dr. Manmohan Singh ji, another one is Dr. P.V. Narasimha Rao. By then leaders, one is Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao and Finance Minister Manmohan Singh. These two people are the leaders and who introduced new economic policy, even though they are leading a minority government in parliament. So that's why Dr. P.V. Narasimha Rao is called Chanakya of this new economic policy. See, you can see the leaders on the screen. One is P.V. Narasimha Rao garu and another one is Manmohan Singh ji. Come back to our slide. It is a movement from bane to boon, disadvantage to advantage. It is a remarkable change in our Indian economy. During 1890, India was behind developed nations in terms of technology. Actually, implementation or introduction of technology in India is the basic idea of late Rajiv Gandhi ji. The Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi felt need of technology upgradation in India, and he gave priority for technology between 1980 and 90. So industries are restricted by quota system. What is this quota system? Very simple. See, every industry, if they want to import goods from foreign countries, they are supposed to pay in the form of forex, foreign exchange reserves. But we have shortage of forex. That's why everybody is given to some quota, 20%. If I applied for $100, they are going to be giving me 20. Next time 20, again 30, again 30. Like that, there was a quota system, and we have some restrictions on import of resources. Our industries failed to compete with world standards due to lack of this technology. See, during 1981 and 83, with the initiative of Rajiv Gandhi ji, two companies entered into Indian economy. One is Suzuki by having tie-up with Maruti Suzuki, and Honda company by having a tie-up with Hero Honda. That's why these two companies almost entered in Indian economy between 81 and 83. This is a sign or signal to say that India is linked with globe. It is see, Japanese companies, Korean companies and European companies are very particular about quality. See, then our companies also stick to quality and cost effectiveness. Students, let me ask a question. Who will become a market leader? The market leader, the person who can produce goods at low, at cost effective, that person can become a market leader. But at the same time, we should give more priority for quality. Government realized that its role is be a facilitator for economic growth and should not start new industries. Well, coming to the second one, what I want to tell, see, in second economic plan onwards, government used to establish large scale and big scale organizations. But economic growth cannot be get with simple introduction of public sector undertakings. They also felt that it should be create an environment and infrastructure for private entrepreneurs to take up bigger projects. So in this slide, there are four major parts. One is quality, a second one is cost effectiveness, third one is economic growth must be done by reducing the share of central government, and to give or create an environment by developing infrastructure to help or to lift private operators in enterprise. See, come back to our three parts. One is liberalization, privatization and globalization. The first pillar of this new economic policy is liberalization. See, in corner cover again I kept. This is cover is broken now. How? Liberalization means every individual has a right, or every individual is provided to become an entrepreneur. Great freedom was given to private entrepreneurs. The first initiative was delicensing. Delicensing means abolition of license raj. No need to take license. See, previously we used to have more licenses before you start any business. Now it is completely abolished. License raj is abolished with the introduction of liberalization. Second one is link public sectors with capital markets. See, let me ask a question at this juncture. Everybody wants to say that India is always a developing country when it was developed or when it is going to be developed? Simple question I want to ask my dear children. How many of you are investing in our capital markets? Ask your parents, ask your earners, ask your brothers, my dear brother or parent, are you investing in share markets? Whenever at least one person from each house invest in capital markets, then automatically Indian economy will become developed economy. So by the initiative of liberalization or new economic policy, public sector undertakings were linked with capital markets. And public sector undertakings are also given a chance to buy back their shares whenever they have a rich capital or rich reserves in their hands. Freedom was given to banks to enter into allied services like insurance. Now if you go to the bank, they are asking for other products like a credit card or insurance or a locker system, etc., etc. Previously, there is much influence of central government on banks. You know very well, in the year 1961, 14 banks were nationalized. In the year 1986, banks were nationalized. From this 1991 onwards, great freedom was given to our banks. And banks are also given freedom to fix their lending rates. PLR is there, prime lending rate, as well as they have a right to fix rates on their deposits. In order to encourage entrepreneurs in almost all areas, priority was given in the way of tax exemption, tax holidays, tax concession, etc., etc., etc. So liberalization always boost up entrepreneurs and provided people to become new and young entrepreneurs. Then second pillar of new economic policy is privatization. In privatization, see, we open the doors for private operators by reducing the involvement of central government. Why? Because from second planning onwards, 5-year plan onwards, government felt that we are supposed to establish big organizations, but with the invention of, with the initiative of privatization, first one is divestiture, sale of equity of public sector to private companies. Why? No, you can see now, our current central government is going to be privatize our big entrepreneur of India, Indian Railways. Some Indian railway stations are going to be hand over to private people. It is also part of privatization. Second initiative under privatization is nationalization. Previously we nationalized, but now we are giving priority for denationalization. Third one is franchising facility to public sector with private sector. Now the latest concept is PPP. What is full form of PPP? Public Private Partnership. So portion of investment procured by public, government, portion of the investment procured or augmented from private people. So public private partnership is the latest concept, but we had seeds in new economic policy. So disinvestment means reducing portion of public and increasing the portion of private people in government. So these are the initiatives taken under second pillar, privatization. What is third one? Globalization. This is third pillar of economic reforms in India. In this globalization, our businesses were linked with foreign trade. Let me ask one question. See, Americans use Indonesian eggs. They never use Indian eggs. You know why? It means that Indian eggs contains more cholesterol than Indonesian eggs. Right? So it means that our Indian hen has to compete with Indonesian hen. So globalization provides an opportunity to compete ourselves with world standards, global standards. So think, if you want to compete with the global standards, you need to enhance your quality. What we initiated in globalization? First one is we encouraged international trade. Everybody was given opportunity to export their products. Second one is foreign direct investments. So previously we had self-sustainability, self-reliance, procurement of funds from domestically or nationally, but now we open doors for FDI, foreign direct investments. In some areas, in some sectors, 90%, even 100% foreign direct investment is allowed in order to boost up our Indian economy. The third one is market share, international market share, technology upgradation and information sharing, all these part of globalization. So what I want to tell, in globalization that cover is broken and Indian businesses are linked with international businesses. We can export as well as we can import. In the first slide I said you are enjoying smart life. That smart life is possible only with this globalization. In order to encourage our entrepreneurs, our central government also encouraged like SEZ, Special Economic Zones, EPZ, Export Promotion Zones, EOUs, Export Oriented Units, all these to encourage our economy. So business environment always speak about economy. In the year 1999, MRTP Act was renamed as FEMA. So instead of means we moved from restrictive trade practices to management authorities. So FEMA stands for Foreign Exchange Management Authority. So this encourages, this globalization encourages competitive spirit and also provided an opportunity to enhance our global knowledge. Let me introduce a word, competitive advantage. What is competitive advantage? See, generally customers ask a question, what is the need to buy your product? If it is qualitative, then people can buy, otherwise we cannot buy. So let me ask a question, why India is always developing country? Yes, we are developing, not compromising. What we are doing from 1991 onwards given good fruits to Indian economy. So let me explain some statistics regarding current position of Indian economy for your better understanding of new economic policy. We struggled, no doubt in it, and we started from 1947 onwards with zero, but we reached certain level by 1991. So after 1991, Indian economic facet almost changed like anything. Let me say our population almost 1.353 billion by 2018. Our GDP is 2.936 trillion. See, our rank is now 5th rank in the world. Previously in 2017 it was 6th. Now it is 5th rank in having GDP. GDP by sector also, so agriculture sector almost came down to 3rd position. Industry sector is in 2nd position. By services, particularly software services, we are in top position by having more than 61% of share in our GDP. Our inflation is almost 3.05%. Already I said in previous. See, in before 1991 we had an inflation of 14%. With the introduction of new economic policy, we came down to we brought that inflation to 3.05. You can see that CPI, Consumer Price Index, by is, and exports. We are now exporting per annum $330 billion worth of exports to various countries. See, population below poverty line, BPL is 60.4% we have. Our unemployment position came down drastically to 6.1%. We are exporting goods, agriculture goods, fuels and mining, manufacturing goods to various countries. Our main export partners are Arab Leagues, European Union, United States, Asian countries, China, etc., etc. All these are the result of new economic policy. Even though we are exporting $330, still we are importing $514 billion worth of goods every year. Our imported goods are agriculture, fuels and mining, manufacturers, etc. Why? Because we are in globalized world. So entire globe become a hut. We export our goods and as well as we can import other goods also. So main import partners are Arab Leagues, China, Asian countries, European Union, United States, etc., etc. we are sharing our this one. So what you can expected questions from this lesson. See, before we enter into the question part, let me conclude the topic new economic policy. So two people we must remember, one is Dr. P.V. Narasimha Rao and second one is Manmohan Singh, who introduced this new economic policy. Before that, we suffered a lot with many shortfalls, unemployment, poverty, disequilibrium, or this distribution of wealth, national wealth. Lot of the areas are neglected. Only some parts of the country are getting resources. Low economic support, no formation of capital, no movement in capital markets, less position in entrepreneurs, lack of opportunities, no employment to the people, no infrastructure development. We suffered a lot. But even though we had 7 5-year plans, in each 5-year plan we have some objectives, but we failed to reach a safe position until 1991. So this economic policy no doubt had given a boost to Indian economy to change from underdeveloped to developing. That's why I said India is developing, but we are not compromising. See what questions you expect from this lesson, new economic policy. In examinations you can get this question, write about new economic policy in India. You can note down, write about new economic policy in India. So what is economic policy? Liberalization, privatization and globalization. Implementation of these three from 1991 onwards is new economic policy. Why we introduced this new economic policy, need to introduce, etc., etc. Second question is, state some major economic reforms in new economic policy in 1991. The same question can come like this. What do you mean by the acronym LPG? Expand the LPG. All these are the expected outcomes what you can get from new economic policy. Thank you very much. Welcome back dear students for our business environment topic. Now I want to give a brief idea on objectives of our plans and planning system. See, in previous class we learned about a new economic policy, but we go back to our planning system and what are the objectives of Indian planning system. See, 3 slides I want to show at a time. One is Indian economy as undeveloped, Indian economy as developing, Indian economy as developed. See, Indian economy as underdeveloped, we have many drawbacks, like Indian economy suffered with low per capita income, inequitable distribution of wealth, heavy dependence on agriculture, unemployment, child labor, capital scarcity and low capital formation, outdated technology. Almost these are appear in society even now. Why? Because still we are developing. That's why being an underdeveloped economy, India has all these sufferings. what we have as developing economy. After great efforts of many successive central governments, see, we introduced new economic policy, etc., etc. Now we are steadily growing. See, the simple example is, previously in our economy, agriculture sector used to play an important role or primary role, but now it came down to third place. From third place, service sector came up. This is a good initiative to say our economy is developing. You may ask a question, sir, when we are going to be developed? That is in our hands. That's why I kept this slide empty. Whenever Indian government or Indian economy developed, then you can fill this slide. Why I kept this slide empty? Even though we have n number of plans, various objectives, we need to change. Why? Because instead of developing whole, individual development play an important role in. I will show another slide, say how human resources are important in a country to develop economically. What happened with 5-year plans? See, many basic metal industries in steel, copper, aluminum, etc. were introduced in 5-year plans. See, canals made for irrigation, development of telecommunication, All India Radio was established. All these are the initiatives taken by our central governments in our 5-year plans. What are the objectives of Indian economic policy? No doubt, poverty is our basic drawback. Population is our drawback. So, we fail to use our existing infrastructural facilities. Our standards of living is very low. All these are the drawbacks. Whenever we have a policy to eradicate poverty, whenever we utilize our infrastructures fully, whenever we enhance the standard of living of our public, then we can say we are developing slowly. There are other two parameters. One is we must increase our national income, we must increase per capita income, we must raise agriculture production, and we have to reduce the agriculture dependence. So, we have another objectives like achieve balanced regional development. We must expand employment opportunities. We must reduce inequalities of income and wealth. All these are the main objectives of Indian economy. So, whatever may be the plan, it may be first year or 5-year plan or 6th year plan or 7-year plan, our objectives are basically maybe 3. One is unemployment, second one is regional balanced development, and development of infrastructures, etc., etc., etc. What are the growth rates plan wise, you can see in this slide. In first year 5-year plan, between 51 to 56, we have estimated a growth rate of 1.2, it is 3.6. In second year plan, 2.5 is our estimated, but we achieved 4. In third one, estimated 5.6, but we achieved only 2.2 because of war. In 4th year plan, we targeted at 5.7 now, but we achieved only 3.4. In 5th plan, our target is 4.4, whereas we achieved 5.2. In 6th plan, same, estimated and growth is equal. In 7th plan, our estimation is 5.6, we actually achieved 5.6. In 8th plan, our estimation is 5.6, but achieved 6.8. In 9th, 6.5, but achieved only 5.4. In 10th plan, our estimation is 8, achieved nearly 7.8. In 11th plan, our target is 9, but we achieved 7.9. We are in 12th 5-year plan. Actually, this planning concept discontinued from 2015. That's why 12th plan is the last plan under economic policy. Plan wise objectives of first year plan, second year plan, third year plan. What I want to tell, almost all plans, it may be 1 or it may be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, 8, all these plans, 7th I want to stop here. All these plans up to 1990 focused on only 3 aspects. One is eradication of poverty, equal distribution of wealth among people, okay, self-reliance, self-sustainability, and providing employment opportunity to public, etc., etc., etc. So, but 7th plan onwards, from 1990 onwards, our perception changed a lot. Here there are some aspects: growth, equity, social justice, self-reliance, improved efficiency and productivity. For this, we gave much priority from 7th 5-year plan onwards. The policies to accelerate growth in food grains production, increase employment opportunities, these were focused in 7th 5-year plan. In 8th 5-year plan, more priority was given to illiteracy. Why? If people are literate, people can get employment. Whenever they are getting employment, they can get income. Whenever they are getting income, they can go to the market and buy products. Whenever people are buying products, the demand can be increased. Whenever we are getting demand for products, we need more supply. Whenever supply has to be increased, then we need people. Whenever we need people, employment can be generated. So, employment generation is the main key for economic development. From up to 7th plan, our objectives were different. From 8th plan onwards, see, education first priority, health second priority, and strengthening of infrastructure was kept as third priority. In the 9th 5-year plan, they focused on inflation, and they focused on resource mobilization, they focused on rural development. In the 10th 5-year plan, they focused on GDP. In 11th 5-year plan, they focused on reduce the dropouts from school and colleges and giving at least power to villages, that to 24/7, and almost all people must come under electricity supply. While coming to the 12th year plan or last plan, we have this: improving living conditions of SC, ST, OBC and minorities, poverty eradication, gender gaps, employment generation, etc., etc., etc. So, each 5-year plan has their own objectives. However, all objectives are similar in nature. The main aim is poverty eradication, gender gaps, reduction of gender gaps, employment generation, and particularly providing health, insurance, education, etc., etc. In this, from this lesson, you can learn 3 questions. Brief the main objectives of 12th 5-year plan, or state some changes brought by planning system in Indian economy, and explain various broad objectives of Indian economic plans from the beginning, plan 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. These are the items what you can learn from this chapter. Thank you very much. Students, come back to last session in business environment subject, planning and planning structures in India. See, from the beginning I am telling, we have planning system. Planning commission was introduced in the year 1950. From 1951 onwards, first year plan was introduced. See, what we achieved with this planning commission, why we are still learning something about planning system. Actually, strictly speaking, from 2015 onwards, there is no planning commission and plan system in India. Now we have Niti Aayog. So, what are the reasons to transform from planning system to Niti Ayog? I want to show, I want to give some knowledge in this PPT. So, let me ask a question. If you are a prime minister, what you do make this country developed? మీరే కనుక ఈ దేశానికి ప్రధానమంత్రి అయితే ఏం చేస్తారు ఈ దేశాన్ని డెవలప్డ్ కంట్రీ? ఇందాక చూడండి, ఇందాక స్లైడ్లో చెప్పాను, ఒక స్లైడ్ మీకోసం ఎంటీగా ఉంచాను. ఏంటది? ఇండియా కనుక డెవలప్డ్ కంట్రీ అయితే ఆ స్లైడ్ మీకోసం ఎందుకు ఉంచాము అంటే, మీరే కనుక ప్రైమ్ మినిస్టర్ అయితే మీరు దేశాన్ని ఎలా చేస్తారని. సి, హ్యావ్ యూ స్టార్టెడ్ రైటింగ్ ఆన్ ది పేపర్? ఇఫ్ యూ స్టార్ట్ ఎనీథింగ్ రైట్ ఆన్ ఎ పేపర్, ఇట్ కెన్ బి కాల్డ్ యాజ్ ఎ ప్లాన్. సో ప్లాన్ ఈజ్ నథింగ్ బట్ వాట్ యు ఆర్ గోయింగ్ టు బి డూ to transform this country as a developed country from current situation. So what I want to tell, so business environment, we have business environment subject. What is the need to have a planning? Indian economy suffered with a lot. What we low per capita income, unequal distribution of wealth, heavy dependence on agriculture, unemployment, child labor, capital scarcity, low outdated technology, all these are one minute, yeah. All these are the various problems what we have in our country. In order to avoid all these, we must understand a need for economic planning. After 1930, Great Depression in economy, almost all capitalistic countries felt state intervention is very much essential in directing and planning investment in an economy. So in the year 1930, every country, every capitalistic country and every entrepreneurs felt the need of involvement of government in there. USSR, our favorite country, also introduced their first 5-year plan in the year 1928 itself. Then what about India? See, what is planning? First you understand the planning, then we start the history of planning and its implementation in Indian society. So H.D. Dickinson defined planning like this. Let me give you 5W1H model. 5W1H model means when, what, where, why, whom. H means how. As per Dickinson's definition, planning as the making of major economic decisions, what and how much is to be produced, when and where it is to be produced, by whom it is to be allocated, by the conscious decision of the state. State in the sense central government. We must have conscious mind to implement planning in any country. Genesis of planning in India. See, the concept of planning started from 1934 onwards. Bharat Ratna, who conferred Bharat Ratna in the year 1955, great civil engineer of India, Dr. Mokshagondam Visvesvaraya, proposed a 10-year plan in his book Planned Economy for India. He proposed a capital investment of ₹1,000 crore and a 6-fold increase in industrial output per annum. This is the first initiative in India in the year 1934 towards planning or central planning. In the year 1938, after 4 years of 34, see, the Indian National Congress headed by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru appointed the National Planning Committee. This planning committee took a decade, 10 years of time to submit their report, whereas due to announcement of Second World War in the September 1938, this was not materialized. This is second initiative in our economy before independence. Third plan in 1940 by M.N. Roy, it is called Bombay Plan. The Bombay Plan, the People's Plan and Gandhian Plan, one of the most widely used or discussed plan during the year 1940. The Bombay Plan prepared by M.N. Roy. In this plan, priority was given for agriculture and small scale industries. Gandhiji always used to said Grama Swarajyam. If you want to develop, first villages must be developed. That's why in M.N. Roy plan, most priority was given to village development and agriculture development and small scale industries. Next one is S.N. Agarwal's plan or Gandhian plan. which was given input in the year 1944. In the light of the basic principles of Gandhian economics, he authored a book, the Gandhian Plan, in the year 1944, in which priority was given to expansion of small unit production and agriculture. So, small scale industries development and agriculture development can help Indian economy to sustain in those days. After 1947, after attaining independence, Planning Commission was introduced in the year 1950, Prime Minister as ex officio chairman. You know very well. What is the first objective of Planning Commission in India? Make an assessment of the material capital and human resources. From the beginning I am telling, so we must be in a position to use human resources as well as material capital. When the country which can utilize its human capital and material capital efficiently and effectively, then automatically we can develop. My dear students, human resource means you only. You have to develop yourself, you must acquire skills, you must acquire knowledge. Whenever you utilize your efforts for earning, then automatically a country can develop. See, my teacher used to ask me a question. What it is? దేశం నీకేమి ఇచ్చిందని కాదు, నువ్వు దేశానికి ఏమి ఇచ్చేవి అనేది ఇంపార్టెంట్ అని మా గంగరాజ్ మాస్టర్ చెప్పేవారు. ఏమి ఇవ్వాలి మనం దేశానికి? ఇట్ ఈస్ వెరీ సింపుల్. ఎర్న్ మనీ, సేవ్ మనీ, invest your saving in Indian capital markets, then automatically economy can change. Got it? So, simply earn money. How you can earn? Through employment only you get salary. Earn money, save money and keep that money as investment in Indian capital markets. Automatically Indian government can become developed. The second objective of our economic policy was determine priorities. In economics you learn a lot. Human resources are unlimited, resources are limited. Then what to do? Make a priority. In economy also, a Planning Commission had second objective like this: determine priorities, define the stages of carrying out the plan and propose the allocation of resources for due completion of each stage. So, up to 12th 5-year plan, we kept our efforts to make this country sustain and to reach or achieve self-reliance. Already we discussed it in previous plan, when first year plan was introduced, second year plan was introduced, third year plan introduced. Every one of you look at this screen, there is a small mistake. Where that mistake? In 11th plan, see 2007 to 2012, whereas there is a 2112, there is a mistake. Okay, leave it. Timings of 5-year plans I am showing on the screen. Okay, then see, this is history now. Why? From 2015 onwards, there is no centralized planning, there is no planning system, etc., etc., etc. Now we are in third stage, Niti Aayog. So, 1947 to 1991 one stage, 1991 to 2014 is second stage, and this is third stage with the initiation of Niti Aayog. What is this Niti Aayog, which is established in the year 2015? It is one of the Indian democracy's youngest institution. It has been entrusted with the mandate of reimagining the development agenda by dismantling old style of central planning. In central planning, you always use it to listen same words: self-reliance, growth, eradication of poverty, employment generation, blah blah blah. From first plan to 12th plan, we almost have same objectives. But Niti Aayog changed its facet from old requirements to new requirements. What are the objectives of this Niti Aayog? Let me expand the word Niti. National Institution for Transforming India. What it is? National Institutions for Transforming India. What objectives this National Niti Aayog has? The Niti Aayog was mandated to foster cooperative federalism. It evolved a national consensus on developmental goals. We must have again national consciousness on developmental goals. redefine the reforms agenda, change in focus from central planning to cooperative federalism. See, Niti Aayog would like to have a cooperation between central and state by having a conscious decision, transparency in resources allocation by changing the focus. What focus is? See, the objective of Niti Aayog is it act as a platform for a resolution of cross-sectoral issues between central and state governments, capacity building, and to act as a knowledge and innovative hub for economic development. See, three words I want to highlight. One is capacity building, second one is knowledge, third one is innovation. So, creativity and innovation of the people, knowledge of each citizen, capacity building among Indian citizens play an important role in economic development. Progress from 2015, what this Niti Aayog already given to us. The Niti Aayog formulated the first Make in India. What is the logo of Make in India? Lion. It is a good strategy for electronics industry. See, Niti Aayog first given us Make in India concept, in which every product must be produced by us. It also introduced, Niti Aayog also introduced a model land leasing law, which give a roadmap for revitalizing the agriculture. The third one is laid down a national energy policy and specific areas development, northeast and hilly areas development, etc., etc. All these are the outputs of brainchilds of children of our Niti Aayog. Further initiatives are recommended a closure of 6 public sector undertakings. In planning system, we used to encourage central government to go for public sector undertakings. But under Niti Aayog, we are going to be reduce the central government influence in public sectors. That's why we are going to be close the loss making public sector undertakings. Second one, encouraging the disinvestment of other central public sector undertakings. Whenever we go for disinvestment, see, already I said in railways also we are going to be disinvestment. Why? We want to reduce the influence of central government. We want to encourage the private people who can operate system. Pushed for reforms in Medical Council of India, and even our higher education comes under University Grants Commission. It is also going to be changed as HERA, Higher Education Evaluation and Regulating Authority. It means that Niti Aayog is concentrating on various areas in which we forget in previous agenda. Chief ministers as members. In Niti Aayog, chief ministers of every state act as members. These chief ministers meet subsequently as a governing council. Okay. In this, they gave priority for 2 things. One is skill development, second one is Swachh Bharat. What is skill development? How we can develop skills? In previous, we used to say providing employment. Then how people get employment without having skills? So, literacy is important, education is important, then people should have some skills, then those skills must be utilized for economic development. That's why under this Niti Aayog concept, we have skill development is one concept and Swachh Bharat is another concept. What this central CSS does? What is CSS? CSS is nothing but centrally sponsored schemes. Under this centrally sponsored schemes, okay, we adopted a transparent formula based on allocation of national resources among states equally. So, we first charged Swachh Bharat cess on all services. For what we are using this cess? To promote skill development initiatives. To the involvement of states in Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana PMKVY and the Atal Innovation Mission was launched to seed innovations to teach young minds. See, on the basis of this slide, you can understand skill development is the major program of central government. Through various programs, PMKVY or Atal Innovation Mission, etc., etc., central government wants to develop your skills. Unless otherwise people and students like you only have skills, you cannot make our country developed. So, if you want to make our economy developed economy, first thing is we must develop our skills. Second one is we must save funds for economic development. Next one is efforts of Niti Aayog is transforming India's developmental agenda. It sought proposals from all central ministries for accelerate growth, inclusion strategy, etc., etc., etc. This slide enough to explain what Niti Aayog generally gives us. The focus of Niti Aayog is first one education, second one is health, third one is agriculture, fourth one is rural development, fifth one is defense, railways and roads. So, our priorities already moved from old fashion to new one. Education is important for economic development. Health of people is important than any other. Agricultural development, rural development, defense, railways, roads, all these are the various priorities of Niti Aayog. Let me conclude this topic with we moved from underdeveloped to developing, and we are moving towards developing to make India developed. Almost we are in 5th position in GDP by crossing 2 countries, one is France and second one is Great Britain. Now we are better in the world, history by having 5th position. Now under the guidances of Niti Aayog, we are in education, health, agriculture, rural development, defense, railways and etc. My dear students, what kind of questions you can get from this lesson? What is planning? Explain its structure as one question. Define planning, explain the objectives of planning commission you can get, or explain the recent changes made by Niti Aayog in Indian economy. Our efforts are only during this 1 hour class in business environment. I would like to create an environment that an idea that in business environment subject always focus on fiscal policy, monetary policy, capital formation, employment generation, planning and planning commission and Niti Aayog, etc., etc., etc. So, if you focus on these areas, you can understand the macroeconomic concepts and the economic position of the country. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Dear students, welcome to the Botany Gymnosperm class. In this class, we are going to study briefly about Neetum plant. Actually, this Neetum, we can say in the evolution process, it stood as a connecting link between gymnosperms and angiosperms. In a study of 58 characters, more than 60 characters, 60% of the characters resembled angiosperms and less than 30% characters resembled gymnosperms. So, this Neetum, we can say we often get confused it as a angiospermic dicotyledon plant unless until it is in fruiting or flowering stage, we think it as an angiosperm plant. But it shares some of the characters of gymnosperm and be a connecting link between gymnosperm and angiosperm. Before going to study the male and female cones of this Neetum, let us briefly recall the vegetative structure of this Neetum. This Neetum is systemically positioned under the division Gymnospermae, class Nitopsida, order Nitales, family Nitaceae. This is only one and only genus under order Nitales and Nitaceae. When you see its distribution, there are 40 species are confined in this genus, confined to tropical and humid region, especially tropical rainforest of Amazon basin, South China, and some parts of Africa, West Africa and Malaysia. Usually it is endemic in its distribution. It is not at all present in the Australia, Europe and North America. Whereas in India, there are only 5 species are present. They are Nitamala. This is woody climber with swollen nodes, mainly present in Kerala, AP and Odisha. The next species is Nitum contractum. This is a scandent shrub found in Kerala and Nilagiri hills. And Nitum nimon, this is a shrubby plant found in Assam's Naga hills. And Nitum montanum, this is again a climber with slender branches found in northeastern states Assam, Sikkim and some parts of Odisha. And Nitum longifolium, its climber is purely endemic to Andaman and Nicobar islands. And you can, in this map, you can clearly see the distribution of different species of Nitum. See, in the Western Ghats, you can find most common species found in India is Nitamala, and you can see more Nitum montanum is in Assam, and some of the Nitum contractum in this region. So, in India, we have 5 species of Nitum. And I already discussed, this plant is almost resembles angiosperm. Most of the species are climbers, only few shrubs are trees. And Nitum trina, one genus, one species belongs to this Nitum, it is apparently parasitic. And this sporophytic plant body almost resembles the angiosperm. This is differentiated into root, stem and leaves. These roots are profusely branched taproot system, no doubt in it, but they do not go deep into the soil. Soonly it will be replaced by adventitious roots. And when we see the stem, except few species like Nitum nimon, there in the stem it has 2 kinds of branches. One is dwarf shoots of limited growth, another one is long shoots of unlimited growth. And mainly, like angiospermic stem, it has nodes and internodes. It is distinguished by nodes and internodes, but it is articulated and prominently joints are present. These joints are 2 parts, one above the node, one is below the node. You can see in this picture, these joints are demarcated by a clear annual groove here, above the node and below the node. When it falls to the ground, it gives appearance of a bone, and this phenomena is prominently seen in Nitum nemonoids. Whereas in the plant Nitum nemo, there is only one type of branches are present. When you see the leaves are also 2 types. One is scaly leaves, which are only present on the long shoots. Another one is foliage leaves. They are opposite decathisborne and the dwarf shoots. In each axil of the leaf, there is a bud. We can find the buds on the axils. In the climbing seas, we can say there is only one type of branch. Usually that is a draft branch, and it is unbranched. On the all leaves, which are broad leaves arranged in only one side, it often gives a look like as if it is a pinnately compound leaf. But when you carefully observe, only we can identify it is a simple leaf and a small petiole and stipulated, and you can see the axillary bud in the axial position. In this picture, you can see that from the axils, you can see the inflorescence. And this leaf is simple, entire, and you can see the reticulate, unicostate reticulate venation as in case of the dicotyledons. So let's see the reproduction of Nitum. Nitum is no doubt it is a dioecious plant. Dioecious means this male reproductive system is one plant and female reproductive is another plant. These reproductive organs are well developed, and they are well developed, and they are like cones. They are also called strobili. These strobili are organized in inflorescence, usually in panicle manner. You can observe in both the male and female plants in the same way. We can have the panicle type of compound inflorescence. These are usually axillary in position. You can say axillary between the leaf and axil, but it is also terminal in position, found in many plants. It is also not uncommon. See, in this picture you can clearly see the panicle type of inflorescence. So usually flowering season lasts for 2 months. So at various stages you can find these inflorescence developing stages. Right. Now let's see the structure of male cone. See, this is a male cone which is very short and has a stout axis, and from the axils of decussate pair of bracts flowers are arranged. These decussate pair of bracts, they form a cup-like structure known as cupule or collar, commonly called as collars, upon which axils of the collars there are many rows of male flowers. In this picture you can clearly see that there are many collars over which in the axils many flowers are arranged. When you look at a close look at this picture, each cone consists of 10 to 25 collars. This one, each one is a collar. It has more than 10 to 25 collars, and each collar male flowers are arranged in 3 to 6 whorls. Female cones are different, and male cones are clearly visually different. In male cones we have 3 to 6 whorls of male flowers surrounding, and the topmost whorl you can see, observe here, the abortive ovules or imperfect female flowers are seen. They are abortive, they are not functional, but they are present. In each whorl there are 3 to 6 whorl. Each whorl there are 25 to 30 male flowers are present. So initially these male flowers are very compact. They are very compact, but as it matures, the internodal distance between the collar to collar, it elongates and they separate and they become loose. It's very easy for dispersal of pollen grain or microspore, we can say. See, now we will see the structure of a male individual flower. This is a male flower, you can see. This consists of a sheath of perianth and which encloses a single stamen. This sheath is mainly formed by by closing of 2 bracts. 2 bracts, they join to form a cup-like perianth. At the younger stage, it closes, within which the anthers are unilocular. 2 anthers are enclosed. When it matures, that stalk of anther elongates and come out of the perianth, as it is visible in this picture. You can see here. This is in this picture you can clearly see here. See, this is the perianth at the younger stage, and 2 unilocular anthers are enclosed. When it matures, this will come out of this stalk, will pushes the anthers to come out, and anther lobes are matured. So there are many male flowers are present in each whorl. Almost 10 to 25 or 25, 30, as many as male flowers are present in this each collar. Now we'll see the female strobila structure. See, by looking at the male plant and female plant, we can never identify which is a male plant and which is a female plant. Only in the flowering stage or fruiting stage we can identify. Excuse me. We can identify. See, here you can see the female strobile. This is also like a panicle type of inflorescence. See, this is a female strobilus. It is also almost like male strobili. It will also usually arise axillary, but it is present terminal also. There are many collars which are arranged compactly one above the other. It has also short stout axis with several collars arranged one of the above. But the difference between the male cone and female cone is, you can see in this diagram that female cone, there is only one whorl of ovules are present. Whereas in male, there are 3 to 6 whorls of male flowers are present. And upon the male flowers, there was a female ovules were there. But whereas in female strobilus, only one whorl of ovules are present. See in this picture, you can see at the young stage, all the ovules develop uniformly, but at maturity, only some will mature and become seed, and the rest of them gradually fall off or stay however they are. And this uppermost part, you can see in this collar uppermost part, this ovule will never develop in this part. And there are some uniseriate hairs are interspersed among the ovules. So this is the male strobilus structure, and we will see a female flower. Each female flower, we can otherwise call it as a ovule or megasporangium. It is represented by a single ovule. You can see here. See, these are the small ovules which are not developed, and these are the bigger ovules which are developed at the ovules. More or less it is ovular in shape. This consists of a massive nucellus surrounded by 3 envelopes. The outermost envelope, actually this is not a integument, we call it as a perianth, as male flower also has a perianth, and this outermost envelope around the ovule, we usually, and many viewers say, botanists say it as a perianth, and inner to middle and inner envelopes are only considered as outer and inner integument, which encloses the massive nucellus. Within this nucellus only female gametophyte is developed from the cenomegaspore, and this inner integument, it always extends out of this perianth and forms a micropylar tube or style, which in turn receives the microspores of pollen after pollination, and wherein which the pollen tube generated, and it will be helping for the pollination. And in this session, students, we have briefly learned about the vegetative structure of Neetum, which is clearly resembling angiosperm, like having roots, taproot system. Though it has taproot system, soon it is replaced by a adventitious root system. Then stem. Stem has 2 types of branches. One is dwarf shoot, another one is long shoot. Dwarf shoots only usually contains the foliage leaf, and long shoots will be having just a scaly leaf. In some climbing branches like Neetum nimone, there is only one type of branch. Dwarf shoots are present, the 2 unbranched shoots are present. In case of leaves usually in single branched plants, they lie in a single direction, single plane. So it gives appearance like a pinnately compound leaf, and it has an axillary bud in its axil, and it has a small stalk and a stipulated one, entire leaf, and it is very glabrous to say. All the leaves of Neetum, all the species of Neetum are very glabrous and very attractive green color leaves, you can see, and it has unicastate reticulate venation like angiosperms only. And when in the reproduction, it is purely dioecious. All the species of Neetum are dioecious, and male plant is different and female plant is different, but both of them cannot be identified easily unless until it enters into the flowering and fruiting stage. Male flowers are well organized into cones or strobilus, and these are arranged in a inflorescence panicle manner, and each cone is represented by many collars. That means each collar is made up of a pair of bracts which are connate in shape, and they join to form a cup-like structure which is known as collar or cupule, over which axils many 3 to 6 whorls of flowers are arranged. In 3 to 6 whorls of flowers, the uppermost one is the abortive ovules, lowermost whorls only have the male flowers. Each male flower is represented by a single stamen. it is enclosed within the perianth initially. Later on, when it matures, the stalk of the anther extends beyond the perianth. It cut opens the perianth, in fact, and come out of it, and anther is dehisced. In case of female cone, it is also short and stout axis like male cone only. But the major difference is there is only one whorl of female flowers are present at every collar. Both in male and female cones, when at young they are very compact. But when matures, the distance between collar to collar is increased because of the internodal distance length increase. So this ovule, each ovule represents a female flower in case of female strobilus, and it is enveloped by 3 integuments in which the nucellus and megaspore and female gametophyte gradually developed. So we shall be discussing all this microsporogenesis, microspore formation, and male gametophyte generation, megasporogenesis and megaspore formation, and female gametophyte generation in the gametophyte development in the next sessions. Welcome back, students, to study the structure of ovule in Neetum. So when you say it's a ovule or a megasporangium, we can call it is only the female flower of Neetum. So it may have stalk. In Neetum ala, we have stalk, whereas in some species we have very small stalk. We can call it a subsessile. In some species, it is completely without stalk. It is a sessile female flower, we can say. All ovules are orthotropous. They are cross-enucleate. That means with a massive nucellus, they are at a young stage all develop equally, but when it matures, only some ovules in each whorl gradually develops, enlarge itself, and outer envelope or perianth, it turns succulent, fleshy, and provides a beautiful yellowish red color to the fruit. You can see in this picture. So this is a ovule, or we can say it as a female flower, or we can call it as megasporangium. See, in this world, only one is developed, and rest of them are remaining in the same size. Sometimes they fall, and sometimes in some species, maybe 5 to 6 ovules in a whorl also will be developed. See, this ovule is protected by 3 envelopes. Out of outer one, as we discussed earlier, we consider it as the perianth, and it is almost a perianth corresponding to the male flower also. Then we'll see how this megasporangium develops. In this picture, you see the mature seed which turn brown color. After fertilization, when it becomes seed, it turns brown. This megasporangium, it develops from a ovular primordium. We have studied that from the cones, collar, axils, we are developing male flowers or female flowers. From this collar, below, a strip of annular meristematic tissue is present. From the strip of meristematic tissue, there are 4 to 10 ovular primordia different from the other cells. The differentiation you can easily see. They demark themselves from the neighboring cells. They become very big and have a conspicuous nucleus and have dense cytoplasm. We can usually visualize very clearly that these cells are different from other cells. These cells mitotically divide and redivide periclinally, anticlinally to form a mass of cells. This is nothing but nucellus. This nucellus is gradually developed 3 envelopes centripetally. That means outer envelope develops first, then the middle envelope develops next, then the inner envelope develop later. So centripetally the nucellus is enveloped by 3 envelopes, but the outermost one we consider it as the perianth. See, in this picture you can see very clearly. See, this is the outer envelope and these two are the middle and inner envelopes. This inner and middle only actually we consider as the integuments. So we call it as it is a bitegmic ovule, orthotropous bitegmic ovule. Since the outer envelope is not considered as integument, we call it as bitegmic ovule. In the outer and middle integuments, outer envelope and middle envelopes, there are lot of latissiferous ducts. There are scleroid cells. The outermost integument, or sorry, outermost envelope, you can find many external epidermal stomata also. Whereas this innermost envelope or integument is anatomically different from the other two, as it doesn't have, neither it has scleroids nor latissiferous ducts or stomata. So this outermost envelope, which we consider as perianth, will become succulent and fleshy with beautiful attractive colors when it matures or becomes seed. Whereas the middle or the outer integument, middle envelope or outer integument, when it matures in the seed, it forms a stony layer. In this you can see in this inner integument, here this is the inner integument. This is anatomically different from these two outer and middle envelopes, and this is free at the bottom from the nucellus. See, it is developed from here only, and it extends beyond the perianth to form a micropylar tube or style. This actually, in this place, during the pollination, the pollen fluid is exuded from this micropylar tube, and it helps in catching the pollen. Usually when it disappears or dries up, this pollen is gradually brought to here, this position, and it will germinate to produce pollen tube. And this we can say this is the nucellus. From the nucellus, female gametophyte is developed in the from this nucellus. Female gametophyte is developed by sporogenous tissue. When they divide meiotically, they produce cenomegaspores. From it, female gametophyte is completely developed. And you can see there are some cells here. Some cells are present here. These are capped from bottom, this female gametophyte. So these are known as pavement tissue. They later on, after pollination and fertilization, they will be aborted soon. And here you can, whereas in connection with the vascular connection, there are two connections available for this ovule. One will enter directly into this ovule, and other one will be diversified here. One will extend to the inner integument, another will go to the outer integument. So there are 3 branches actually of vascular tissue. There is no nucellar beak. Usually this is a gymnosperm character. So pollen chamber and presence of pollen chamber and nucellar beak is a typical gymnospermic character, which is absent in Neetum. That means it is almost like a angiosperm. This nucellus encloses the female gametophyte, and there is a pavement tissue developed below the female gametophyte, which doesn't allow the female gametophyte to go further. So in this session we have studied the general structure of ovule or female flower or megasporangium, and the longitudinal section of ovule. So a ovule which has a massive tissue of nucellus, this is developed from 2 or 4 antheridial spells developed from the annular meristematic tissue of collar cells, and these will gradually mitotically divide and redivide many times and gives rise to a massive nucellus which gradually centripetally develops 3 envelopes. Outer envelope is considered as parent, middle and inner envelopes are only considered as the integuments. These outer and middle envelopes are anatomically similar. They have we can say they have sclerites, they have luminiferous ducts and they have latissiferous ducts, and they have external stomata also. And whereas the inner integument, it doesn't have all these things. It is free from nucellus from the bottom side, and it is extended beyond the perianth, giving appearance of a tube-like structure known as micropylar tube or style. Like in angiosperm megasporophil or ovary we have a ovule style stigma. So it is almost resembles the style of angiosperms, which gives the way to the pollen tube to enter to reach the female gametophyte. Okay. Welcome back, students. In the previous sessions, we have studied the structure of male and female cones and the ovule structure, LS, longitudinal section of ovule. So, in continuation with it, we are going to study the development of male and female gametophytes of Neetum in this session. See in this, you can see in this picture, Neetum is very clearly, we know that it is a dioecious plant. That means a male plant is different and female plant is different. And the male plant produces a microspore and female plant produces a megaspore. These spores are the first phase of gametophyte. See this gymnosperm, like angiosperm, the major part of the life cycle is sporophytic. So all these leaves, roots, stem, everything comes under sporophytic phase, and up to development of microspore. That means in a male plant, roots, stem, leaves, everything is a sporophytic phase, and male cone and male collar cells, everything till anthers, where the up to spore mother cell, microspore mother cell stage, it is a sporophytic phase. When the microspores develop from the microspore mother cells, that microspore cell, microspore or pollen grain, commonly we call it as pollen grain, that is considered to be the first cell of male gametophyte. Same in case of female gametophyte, female plant. Female plant, all these roots, shoot, leaves, all this comes under sporophytic phase. And this female cone, inflorescence cone, all those collars and ovule, female flower ovule, megasporangium and nucellus tissue, everything comes under sporophytic phase only. From the sporophytic phase, nucellus, some cells convert themselves or divide themselves to form megaspore mother cells. Up to this stage, we consider as sporophytic stage. These megaspore mother cells will meiotically divide to produce megaspores. These megaspores are the first spores or first cells of female gametophyte. See in this, we can see a flow chart like male plants will produce in its sporophytic phase male strobilus, male flower, microsporangium, and in gametophytic phase microspore. So up to here in these stages, this is dioecious, this is diploid in nature, and these microspore and male gametophytes are haploid in nature. Same case in case of female plants, this female strobilus, female flower, megasporangium, or it is a 2N condition, it is in 2N condition, is diploid. Whereas this after meiotic division, this megasporangium will develop into tetranucleate cenomegaspore, which is the characteristic feature of gymnosperms. And this megaspore is haploid in nature, from which female gametophyte will be developing. So in the previous sessions we have studied male strobilus, male flowers, and female strobilus and female flowers. We shall be discussing briefly about microsporangium, microspore development and male gametophyte development, megasporangium, tetranucleate cenomegaspore development and female gametophyte development in this session. So we will first see the development of microsporangium. Microsporangium means that is it will be present inside the anthers. Microsporophylls, they are nothing but anthers, we call them in case of angiosperms. We know that each male flower is represented by only a single stamen, which is enclosed in a perianth. At maturity, that stalk elongates and comes out of the perianth, and it will be protruded outside. In these anthers, you can see in this picture clearly that below the epidermis, that means in a hypodermal area, there are two groups of hypodermal cells. They convert themselves into archisporial cells. That means they distinguish themselves from the other neighboring cells. So you can see the distinct features, like they have very big nucleus and conspicuous nucleus and dense cytoplasm. These divide and redivide to produce multicellular archisporiums, which in terms it produces parietal and sporogenous tissues. These parietal cells means in the archisporium we have parietal cells outside and sporogenous cells inside. These parietal cells and epidermis of these will form the wall layers of microsporangium. The innermost layer is tapetum. So initially all layers will be similar, but later on they differentiate into middle layers and tapetum. Tapetum usually binucleated. Later on it is combined. Sometimes it is a polynucleatic condition also we can observe in case of Neetum. So once it is developed, all these wall layers will help in nourishing the growing sporogenous tissue inside. This sporogenous tissue, it undergoes irregular divisions to form microspore mother cells. Again, these microspore mother cells, it receives nourishment from these and they divide meiotically. That means they reduce till this stage. Microspore mother cells, they are diploid in condition. Once it undergoes reduction division, the diploid nucleus will be converted into 4 haploid nucleus. Each diploid nucleus, when it undergoes meiosis, as we know, it will be converted into a haploid nucleus. And these are initially, they are arranged in isobilateral, leukocyte and tetrahedral manner in the within the microspore mother cells, within the spore mother cells, and they are side by side. At this time when these are developing, this wall, tapetal wall, this will supply food to this nourishment to this growing sporogenous tissue or pollen grains or microspores we can call, and this will degenerate gradually, almost ultimately finally when these microspores are formed, these will be disorganized. These uninucleate microspores, they enlarge in size and become free. Once they enlarge in size, they exert some pressure over the anther walls. Initially they break over the spore mother cells, later on they break the anther walls. They just come out of the microspore mother cells and anthers. Now we will see the structure of this male gametophyte. See, I said earlier that microspore is the first cell of male gametophyte. This we can say this from this microspore, or commonly we call it as pollen grain. This from this male gametophyte is developed. In these pictures you can see that male gametophyte is almost spherical in structure, almost, and it is a uninucleate, and it is enveloped by a thick spiny exine and a smooth intine. See, in this picture you can see, and there are some places where this exine is very thin, from which they are known as gemphores, from which intine protrudes during pollen germination. And this, in a general most accepted view I am discussing now, this nucleus will divide into 2, forming a prothalial cell, another antheridial cell, This antheridial cell again divided into tube cell and generative cell. At these 3 cell stage, pollen grain or microspore come out of the microspore mother cell and anther wall and will be dispersed and pollination takes place. Once the pollination takes place, that means when this pollen grain reaches the ovule, when it is caught by the sweet fluid which is exuded out of the micropylar tube, it is caught by it gradually, that will be dried and this pollen grain will be pulled inside the ovule. Once it is entering inside, from the exine layer will be burst out and intine will come out as a pollen tube. You can see in this picture. It will come out, and from this tube nucleus will come first and followed by a generative nucleus which is divided into again 2 male gametes. But there are different views. There are different views of the development of male gametophyte we come across in case of Needham. The first one is the Pearson views. The Pearson in the year 1914, he has studied the male gametophyte development in case of Needham nimone and Needham africanum. What he said, the microspore is it is ovular in structure and it has a nucleus and it will divide to form a 2 unequal cell, a lenticular porthallial cell and a bigger cell. And this nucleus again will divide in another into 2 cells. One is a tube cell, another one is a generative cells. All these 3 cells like prothallial nucleus, tube nucleus, Needham nuclei, all will be floating in the cytoplasm. So it will be shed at this stage, and later after pollination, as we discussed earlier, tube nucleus enters into the pollen tube first, followed by the generative cell, which gives the 2 male gametes in the pollen tube. The next view is Thomson's view. Thomson clearly in 1916, he said that there is no porthallial cell formation. This initially the nuclei will be divided into 2. One is generative cell, another one is tube cell. Later on, this generative cell divides into 2. One is a body cell, another one is stalk cell. At this stage, this will also shed after pollination when the tube cell enter inside the pollen tube, and this only the body cells follows the tube cells and divide to produce unequal male gametes, whereas the stalk cell remains in the pollen grain itself. Later on in 1957, the most accepted version of male gametophyte development in nimone was studied by Negi and Madhulata. They have studied in Needham ala and Needham nimone, some more species of Needham. They said that initially this nucleus will divide it into 2 cells. One is prothallial cell, another one is antheridial cell. This prothallial cell will not divide again, it will remain in it only after pollination also, whereas this antheridial cells will divide into generative cell and tube nucleus. So this will shed at this stage, and after pollination this tube nucleus enter first and followed by the generative cell, which in turn divide into produce 2 male gametes. So whatever version it is, whatever view it is, pollen grain is shed at the 3 cell stage, either a prothallial cell or it is some generative cell or tube cell or antheridial cell. At the 3 cell stage it will be shed, and it will be developed only after pollination. See, after pollination, what happens? This I have discussed earlier. This pollen grain, the transfer of pollen from anthers to the ovular fluid is nothing but pollination. In case of gymnosperm, it will be caught by a sweet, high tensile, viscous fluid secreted by ovule, and it will be caught by that and it will be directly pulled. So this is actually direct pollination in case of gymnosperms, whereas in case of angiosperm we don't see direct pollination, it is always indirect. See, it will fall on stigma, then it enters through style, then it reaches the ovule. But whereas in case of gymnosperms, pollen grain directly falls on ovule and it reaches inside the female egg. And after falling this, after getting into the fluid, this microsporophyll, it absorbs that some of the fluids, enlarges in size gradually. This egg sign will break and the intine will come out like a tube. Once it come out, all the cytoplasm along with the tube nucleus enters the pollen tube, and this pollen tube transfers between the intercellular spaces of nucellus of ovule. So initially it will be getting into a false pollen chamber through micropellar tube. Later on, this pollen tube, after germination, it will be going through the transfers to the massive nucellus through intercellular spaces. So initially the tube nucleus enters, after that generative nucleus follows it. But later on, when the generative cell wants to divide, when it reaches the signal that egg is ready, this position of the tube cell and generative cells are reversed. This generative cell come first and divide to form two male gametes. These male gametes, usually one will be functioning and one only will fertilize with the egg. But sometimes we can see in some cases of some species of neetum, both the male gametes will fuse with the two different egg cells and produce two zygotes. But this is a very rare case. Out of these two gametes, only one male gamete will be functional. Whereas in case of angiosperms, we very well know there is a triple fission with the another male gamete. That phenomenon is lacking in gymnosperm. And that's how this neetum is different from the angiospermic plant. See, in this diagram you can see what we have discussed here. We can see in this diagram very clearly. The tube nucleus will be first initially, then later on it will be pushed up and male gametes will be pushed down. Okay, this is how the microsporangium development and male gametophyte develops. Now let's see the megasporogenesis. Megasporogenesis means nothing but development of a ovule. We have previous session we have completely studied about the ovule. So it is ovular in shape, crassionucellate, and crassionucellate means it has massive cells in the nucellus part, and it is enveloped with three envelopes. Outer one we consider it as perianth, and inner and middle envelopes are considered only integument. Outer and middle envelopes are anatomically similar, whereas the inner integument is anatomically different. It is free from nucellates at the bottom stage, and we have studied all these. So these female gametophyte, what we are going to study now, is developed from these massive cells of this nucellus. At the time of formation of inner ovule, integuments, some cells, 2 to 4 archisporial cells, differentiate in the hypodermal region of nucellus. See, we have studied that massive cells of nucellus, which is covered by the three envelopes here. Hypodermal position, some cells, 2 to 4 cells, they become very conspicuous. By looking itself, we can distinguish from the neighboring cells. They are very big nucleus, conspicuous nucleus, and dense cytoplasm. We can differentiate. These cells, what do? They divide and redivide anticlinally, periclinally. So when they divide periclinally in the first division, first upper cell, it is known as a primary parietal cell, and the lower cell is known as primary sporogenous cell. See here, in this upper cell is known as primary parietal cell, lower cell is known as primary sporogenous cells. Later on, this primary parietal cell divide and divide again and again. It will divide many times anticlinally, periclinally, it divide. As a result, this sporogenous tissue is pushed inside, deeply seated in the nucellus. It will be deeply seated in the nucellus. So initially, archisporial cell divide twice. Once periclinally it divides. The outer cell gives the primary parietal cell, inner cell gives the primary sporogenous cell. Parietal cell divides many times and pushes these sporogenous cells deep inside the nucellus. So it's some kind of protection also. Sometimes it helps in nourishment also. All this, it will be entered inside. Since this ovule is open, so what this plant has taken measure to push this female gametophyte inside the female flower. So this sporogenous tissue, which is deeply seated in the nucellus now, it will divide mitotically to produce 8 to 12 megaspore mother cells. These megaspore mother cells, till this stage, they are diploid in condition. Later on, these will undergo meiotic division, that means a reductional division, to produce megaspores. So each megaspore mother cells will produce 4 megaspores actually. But these 4 megaspore nucleus, they do not separate by the cell walls. So in each megaspore mother cells will be containing a 4 nucleus. So it is known as megaspore, tetranucleate megaspore. This condition we found in angiosperms also. All gymnosperms, all these tetraspore, all the 4 nucleus will remain in the center of it, and all megaspore mother cells will be having 4 nucleus. So there will be 8 to 12 megaspore mother cells having 4 nucleus each, but most of them will degenerate. Only 1 megaspore mother cell with 4 nucleus will be functioning. So after 10 to 12 megaspores, only 1 will be functional. Since it has all the 4 nucleus in the center, we call it as xenomegaspore. So from this functional xenomegaspore, female gametophyte will be developed. So this is also we observe in angiosperms. Now this you can see clearly in this. So this due to more divisions in periclinial region, this sporogenous tissue is pushed into the massive nucellus, and these will undergo a meiotic division to produce xenomegaspores. See here you can see spinomegaspore. So only 1 will be the functional megaspore. So from this 1 functional megaspore only, the female gametophyte will be developed. So megasporogenesis means development of megaspore is known as megasporogenesis. Now xenomegaspore is developed from the nucellus. Now we will see the development of female gametophyte from the megaspore. So the functional megaspore, the xenomegaspore, is more or less ovoid in shape and has 4 nuclei, as we discussed. It is almost all ovular cells are ovoid in shape, and it has 4 nucleus. Initially they will be aggregated in the center, and like other gymnosperms, in other gymnosperms like Cycas and Pinus, there are 4, they are aggregated at the center. So at this stage development start, these 4 nucleus, they start dividing mitotically. So n number of nucleus will be developed. They divide many times. Sometimes in species, some species like Netum pneumon, we can find 250 nucleus, whereas in case of Netum africanum, we find 512 nuclei, and Netum ala, we find almost 1500 nucleus. So lot of nucleus will be generated from these mitotic divisions of the xenomegaspores. Then what will happen gradually when the lot of nucleus are generated, the cell has to be enlarged gradually. So it will enlarge, elongate towards the chalangal end. Actually it gives a appearance like a spoon, spatulate. When you see a spoon, it is long, like it has a long stalk, and the bottom, or what we eat, a spoon, it is enlarged at the bottom. Same type we can find here also. It becomes spatulated with so many nucleus. Then a central vacuole is gradually developed, and it pushes all nucleuses towards the periphery. So when you see it, initially all the nucleus will be almost in the center, but the vacuole, when it enlarges, the cell will enlarge. Cell enlargement is more faster than the nuclear division. Gradually vacuoles are developed, and it will reach all the small vacuoles form a bigger vacuole, which will be in the center, pushes all the nucleus to the periphery, and towards chalangal side, this nucleus will gradually develop cells. So it will be cellular. So when you see a female gametophyte, at the chalangal end it is cellular, but whereas in micropylar side it has free nucleus. So it is partly cellular, partly nuclear. So this type of halobial type of endosperms we observe in angiosperms, whereas the female gametophyte itself developed in this way in gymnosperm. So we can say this is a partly cellular or partly nuclear. Now In the female gametophyte, after this, we don't have, there is no archegonium development in case of neetum, whereas archegonium is developed in some gymnosperms, lower stage gymnosperms. Absence of archegonia is a characteristic feature of angiosperm. So we can see in this, and some free nuclei in this micropylar region, you can see micropylar region, they become big, they enlarge, they intake some cytoplasm and act as eggs. So there is no archegonium, there is no embryo sac development. There are some free cells. When they receive some signal, when they enter of pollen tube into the female gametophyte, they enter that signal, they receive that stimulus, and some cells suddenly enlarge. They acquire cytoplasm into it, they become bigger in size, and they act themselves as egg. There may be more than one egg cell. So based on the availability of the male gametes, fertilization will take place. See, to conclude this session, neetum is a dioecious plant. It's very clear that we know that male plant is different and female plant is different, and male has all the male flowers are organized, well organized into male clones, strobilus in panicle manner, whereas in female also they are arranged in panicles, and each inflorescence, the bracts combine to form collars. There are almost 10 to 25 collars in each cones. The male cones are much bigger in size when compared to female cones. When we study in the same species, male cones are bigger than the female. So in the male cones, 3 to 6 whorls of male flowers are arranged, whereas in female cone we have only 1 whorl of female flowers are arranged. These male flowers, a male flower is represented by a single stamen, whereas female flower represented by a ovule. From these male flower anthers, microspores are produced through microsporogenous process, whereas in ovular megasporangium, xenomegaspores are produced through megasporogenesis process. So all this microspore, the first cell of male gametophyte, xenomegaspore is the first cell of female gametophyte. They themselves develop as a male and female gametophytes, and all the male gametes and the female gametophyte egg cells, they fuse to form zygote. This is all students, and next class we are going to discuss about the pollination and fertilization and the embryo development of neetum.
మన టీవీ వీక్షకులకు స్వాగతం. ఈనాటి మన పాఠ్యాంశం పీజియన్ రెస్పిరేటరీ సిస్టమ్, పావురం శ్వాస వ్యవస్థ. పక్షులు గాలిలో సునాయాసంగా సుదీర్ఘ ప్రాంతాలకు ప్రయాణించడానికి వాటి యొక్క దేహ నిర్మాణంలోని అవయవ వ్యవస్థలో కొన్ని ప్రత్యేకమైన మార్పులు సంతరించుకున్నాయి. వాటిలో ముఖ్యంగా మనం గమనిస్తే పక్షుల యొక్క శ్వాస వ్యవస్థ అన్నది ప్రత్యేకత సంతరించుకున్న ఒక అవయవ వ్యవస్థగా మనం గమనించగలము. ఈనాటి మన పాఠ్యాంశంలో పావురం యొక్క శ్వాస వ్యవస్థలో ఉన్న ముఖ్యాంశాలను మనం గమనించగలుగుతాం. దానికంటే ముందుగా పక్షులకు సంబంధించిన కొన్ని సాధారణ అంశాలను మనం గమనిద్దాం. పక్షులన్నటివి ఈకలు కలిగిన వర్టిబ్రేటా జీవులు. ఈకలు కలిగిన ఫెదర్డ్ బైపెడల్ వర్టిబ్రేట్స్, ఈకలు కలిగిన ద్విపాద సకశేరుకాలుగా పక్షులను చెప్పుకోవచ్చు. పక్షుల యొక్క ఉద్భవనాన్ని గమనిస్తే థెరాపోడ్ డైనోసార్స్ నుంచి జురాసిక్ పీరియడ్లో ఉద్భవించాయి. దే ఆర్ మోడర్నైజ్డ్ ఇన్ ద క్రిటేసియస్ పీరియడ్. క్రిటేసియస్ యుగంలో ఆధునీకరింపబడిన జీవులుగా వీటిని చెప్పుకోవచ్చు. పక్షులను హక్స్లే అనే శాస్త్రవేత్త దివ్యమైన సరీసృపాలు లేదా గ్లోరిఫైడ్ రెప్టైల్స్, జేజెడ్ యంగ్ అనే శాస్త్రవేత్త వీటిని మాస్టర్స్ ఆఫ్ ఎయిర్ అని అభివర్ణించడం జరిగింది. పక్షుల గురించిన అధ్యయనాన్ని ఆర్నిథాలజీ అంటాము. పక్షి జాతులలో అన్నిటికంటే అతి పెద్ద పక్షిగా ఆస్ట్రిచ్ లేదా స్ట్రూథియో క్యామిలస్ అనే దీని యొక్క శాస్త్రీయ నామం. ఈ పక్షి జాతి అన్నిటికంటే అతి పెద్ద పక్షిగా చెప్పుకొనవచ్చును. అదేవిధంగా పక్షి జాతి అన్నింటిలో కూడా అతి చిన్న పక్షిగా బీ హమ్మింగ్ బర్డ్, మిల్లిసుగా హెలినే అనే ఈ పక్షి జాతిలో అన్నింటికంటే అతి చిన్న పక్షిగా చెప్పుకొనవచ్చును. భారతదేశంలో మొట్టమొదటిసారిగా పక్షుల గురించి శాస్త్రీయమైన పద్ధతిలో సర్వే గావించిన శాస్త్రవేత్త డాక్టర్ సలీం అలీగా అభివర్ణించవచ్చును. అందుకే సలీం అలీ అనే శాస్త్రవేత్తను బర్డ్ మ్యాన్ ఆఫ్ ఇండియా అని ఆయనను అభివర్ణించడం జరిగింది. ఈయన పక్షుల గురించి అనేక గ్రంథాలు రాయడం జరిగింది. ఈయన రాసిన పుస్తకాలలో ముఖ్యమైనవి ద బుక్ ఆఫ్ ఇండియన్ బర్డ్స్ అండ్ ద హిల్ బర్డ్స్ ఆఫ్ ఇండియా అనేవి అత్యంత ప్రాచుర్యాన్ని సంతరించుకున్న ముఖ్యమైన గ్రంథాలుగా చెప్పుకొనవచ్చును. నౌ వి లెర్న్ అబౌట్ ద రెస్పిరేటరీ సిస్టమ్ ఆఫ్ పీజియన్. పక్షుల యొక్క శ్వాస వ్యవస్థను మనం గమనించినట్లయితే నౌ వి సీ ద డెఫినేషన్ ఆఫ్ రెస్పిరేషన్. రెస్పిరేషన్ ఈజ్ delivers oxygen from the air to the tissue and remove carbon dioxide. గాలిలోని ఆక్సిజన్ను కణజాలాలకు సరఫరా చేస్తూ కణజాలాల నుండి కార్బన్ డయాక్సైడ్ను తొలగించు ప్రక్రియని శ్వాసక్రియగా చెప్పుకొనవచ్చును. పక్షుల యొక్క శ్వాసక్రియను గమనించినప్పుడు మిగిలిన జీవులతో పోల్చితే అత్యంత ప్రత్యేకతను సంతరించుకున్న శ్వాస వ్యవస్థను మనం పక్షులలో గమనించగలుగుతాము. పక్షుల యొక్క శ్వాస వ్యవస్థలో ముఖ్యంగా వాయుగోనులు అనే నిర్మాణాలు ప్రత్యేకంగా కనిపించే నిర్మాణాలుగా మనం చెప్పుకోనవచ్చును. పక్షులు నిరంతరాయంగా గాలిలో ఎగిరే జీవులు. సో దట్ దే రిక్వైర్డ్ రిచ్ అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ ఆక్సిజన్. ద ఫ్లైట్ యాక్టివిటీ రిక్వైర్స్ అ కంటిన్యూస్ సప్లై ఆఫ్ ఆక్సిజన్. Therefore, the respiratory system of birds are very complex than compared with another vertebrates. అంటే పక్షుల యొక్క శ్వాస వ్యవస్థ అనేది అత్యంత సంక్లిష్టతను సంతరించుకున్న వ్యవస్థగా చెప్పుకొనవచ్చును. మిగిలిన వర్టిబ్రేటా జీవుల కంటే ఇది క్లిష్టమైన వ్యవస్థగా చెప్పుకొనవచ్చును. పక్షి యొక్క శ్వాస వ్యవస్థను మనం గమనిస్తే there are 3 parts are there: respiratory tract, respiratory organs or lungs, and air sacs. These are the major 3 parts in the respiratory system of pigeon or bird. Now we see one by one. First part of the respiratory system of bird or pigeon is respiratory tract. Respiratory tract includes nares, nasal sacs, glottis, larynx, trachea and syrinx. నాసికా రంధ్రాలు, నాసికా కుహరాలు, కంఠబిలము, స్వరపేటిక, వాయునాళం, షెబ్బిని అనే భాగాలు శ్వాస మార్గంలో ఉండే భాగాలుగా మనం చెప్పుకొనవచ్చును. నౌ వి సీ అబౌట్ నారెస్, నాసల్ సాక్స్ అండ్ గ్లోటిస్. నారెస్ ఆర్ కాల్డ్ యాజ్ ఎక్స్టర్నల్ nostrils. These external nostrils are a pair are present on the upper beak and they are overlapped with a muscular structure that is nothing but cirrus. Then we see about nasal sacs. External nostrils are opens into a short chamber like structure that is olfactory or nasal sacs. These nasal sacs are communicated with a pharynx through internal nostrils. అంతర నాసికా రంధ్రాల ద్వారా nasal sacs అనే ఈ నిర్మాణాలు ఫారింక్స్ అనే గ్రసని అనే నిర్మాణంలోకి తెరుచుకొనబడినట్లుగా ఉంటాయి. ఈ పిక్చర్లో మనం గమనించినట్లయితే గిన గ్లాటిస్ నాలుక యొక్క వెనక భాగంలో ఉండే ఈ గదిలాంటి నిర్మాణాన్ని గ్లాటిస్ అని మనం చెప్పుకొనవచ్చును. దిస్ గ్లాటిస్ ఓపెన్స్ ఇంటూ ట్రాకియా. Glottis opens into trachea. It is trachea. In this diagram we can clearly observe trachea. The posterior part of trachea, that is nothing but syrinx. The posterior part of trachea, that is syrinx. Now larynx, swarapetika. పక్షులలో స్వరపేటికను వాయిస్లెస్ ఛాంబర్. సాధారణంగా క్షీరదాలలో గమనించినప్పుడు స్వరపేటిక అనే నిర్మాణము శబ్దాన్ని ఉత్పత్తి చేసే నిర్మాణంగా చెప్పుకొనవచ్చును. కానీ పక్షులలో స్వరతంతువులనే నిర్మాణాలు స్వరపేటికలో ఉండవు. అంతేకాకుండా స్వరపేటిక అనే నిర్మాణము అంతగా అభివృద్ధి చెందకుండా ఉంటుంది. కాబట్టి స్వరపేటిక అనే నిర్మాణము పక్షులలో శబ్దాన్ని ఉత్పత్తి చేయలేదు. ద వోకల్ కార్డ్స్ ఆర్ absent in the larynx of birds. This is the specific character so that the larynx of the bird cannot produce the sound. Then next part of respiratory tract, that is trachea. Trachea is a cylindrical, flexible, tube-like structure. It is extended along with the ventral side of esophagus. ఆహార నాళానికి ఉదరతలంలో సమాంతరంగా విస్తరించి ఉన్న నాళం లాంటి నిర్మాణాన్ని వాయునాళం అని మనం చెప్పుకొనవచ్చు. ఈ వాయునాళం అనే నిర్మాణం అనేది ఇది అస్థి నిర్మితమైన వలయాల చేత సపోర్ట్ చేయబడుతూ ఉండే ఒక గొట్టము లాంటి నిర్మాణము. సో దిస్ ట్రాకియల్ posterior part of trachea extended as syrinx. Syrinx is the specific structure of the bird which is the sound organ or vocal organ in the bird. శబ్దిని అనే నిర్మాణము ఏ జీవులలో కూడా లేని ప్రత్యేకమైన నిర్మాణం. ఇలాంటి నిర్మాణాన్ని పక్షులలో మాత్రమే మనం గమనించగలుగుతాం. పక్షులలో శబ్దాన్ని ఉత్పత్తి చేయడానికి తోడ్పడే ముఖ్యమైన నిర్మాణం శబ్దిని లేదా సైరింగ్స్. శబ్దిని యొక్క అంతర్భాగంలో ఎక్స్పాండెడ్ ఛాంబర్ ఈజ్ దేర్, దట్ ఈజ్ నథింగ్ బట్ టింపానం. టింపానం అనే ఒక గదిలాంటి నిర్మాణం శబ్దిని యొక్క అంతర్భాగంలో మనం గమనించగలుగుతాం. సో ద వాయిస్ ఈజ్ ప్రొడ్యూస్డ్ బై ద వైబ్రేషన్స్ ఆఫ్ టింపానిఫామ్ మెంబ్రేన్. శబ్దిని అనే నిర్మాణము చివరి 3 వలయాలైన ట్రాకియా వలయాలు మరియు ట్రాకియా ఉరభాగంలోకి ప్రవేశించిన తర్వాత 2 శాఖలుగా విడిపోతుంది. వీటిని బ్రాంకస్ లేదా శ్వాసనాళాలు అంటారు. ద ట్రాకియా వెన్ ఎంటర్డ్ ఇన్ ద చెస్ట్ రీజియన్ ఇట్ ఈస్ డివైడెడ్ ఇంటూ 2 branches. దే ఆర్ నథింగ్ బట్ బ్రాంకస్. ద యాంటీరియర్ రింగ్స్ ఆఫ్ బ్రాంకస్ అండ్ ద పోస్టీరియర్ రింగ్స్ ఆఫ్ ట్రాకియా దే ఆర్ fused together and formed as a box-like structure, that is nothing but syrinx. దీనే ఇలాంటి పెట్టలాంటి నిర్మాణాన్ని లేదా బాక్స్ లైక్ స్ట్రక్చర్ మనం శబ్దిని అనే నిర్మాణంగా చెప్పుకోనవచ్చును. బ్రాంకస్ యొక్క అంతర్భాగంలో ఉండే మ్యూకస్ మెంబ్రేన్ ఇట్ ఈస్ ఫార్మ్డ్ యాజ్ ఏ టింపానిఫామ్ మెంబ్రేన్. మ్యూకస్ యొక్క అంతర్భాగంలో ఉండే మెంబ్రేన్స్, మ్యూకస్ మెంబ్రేన్స్ అనేవి బ్రాంకస్ యొక్క అంతర్భాగంలో ఉండే మ్యూకస్ మెంబ్రేన్స్ అన్నవి ఇవి టింపానిఫామ్ మెంబ్రేన్ అనే నిర్మాణాలను ఏర్పరుస్తాయి. ఈ టింపానిఫామ్ మెంబ్రేన్స్ యొక్క కదలికల వల్ల శబ్ద ఉత్పత్తి అన్నది జరగడం మనం గమనించగలం పక్షులలో. నెక్స్ట్ పక్షుల యొక్క శ్వాస వ్యవస్థలో 2వ భాగం ఊపిరితిత్తులు లేదా లంగ్స్ లేదా రెస్పిరేటరీ ఆర్గాన్స్. ద రెస్పిరేటరీ ఆర్గాన్స్ ఆర్ లంగ్స్ ఆఫ్ ప్రీజియన్ ఆర్ స్మాల్, కాంపాక్ట్, ఎలాస్టిక్ and highly vascular, and also they are very differ from another lungs of the vertebrates so that they cannot or they do not store the air. So this is the difference between the lung of another vertebrate and the lung of the pigeon or bird. Then the bronchus after enter into the lung, they are called as primary bronchus. These primary bronchus extended up to posterior region of the lung. While it is extended to the posterior region, they are divided into many sub branches as mesobranchus, secondary bronchus, tertiary bronchus and capillaries. Another important thing of the lung of the bird, that is alveoli are absent in the lungs of the birds. It is a very important thing and a very important points, that is alveoli are absent in the lungs of the bird. In the case of mammals, we can observe the exchange of gases occurs at the alveoli, but here the alveoli are absent in the lungs of birds. Then another important structures of respiratory system of bird, they are ఎయిర్ సాక్స్, వీటిని మనం వాయుగోనులు అని అభివర్ణించవచ్చు. పక్షి లేదా పావురం యొక్క శ్వాస వ్యవస్థలో గమనించినప్పుడు 9 వాయుగోనులు ఊపిరితిత్తులకు అనుబంధంగా ఏర్పడిన తిత్తుల లాంటి లేదా సంచుల లాంటి గాలి చేత నింపబడిన నిర్మాణాలను వాయుగోనులు అని అభివర్ణించవచ్చు. ఇలాంటి వాయుగోనులు పక్షులలో 9 మనం గమనించగలుగుతాం. సమ్ ఆర్ పెయిడ్ అండ్ వన్ ఈజ్ అన్పెయిడ్, దట్ ఈస్ సర్వికల్ ఎయిర్ సాక్స్, దే ఆర్ ఇన్ పెయిడ్. Interclavicle air sac, that is in singular. Anterior thoracic air sac, posterior thoracic air sacs, and abdominal air sacs. So all are paired except interclavicle air sac. Interclavicle air sac, it is in singular. Remaining 4 types of air sacs are, they are in double in number. The total number of air sacs in pigeon or bird, they are 9. In this picture, we can clearly observe the air sacs, cervical air sacs, they are in pair. Interclavicle air sac, only one, singular. Anterior thoracic air sacs, posterior thoracic air sacs, and abdominal air sacs. Total number of air sacs are 9. If we observe the formation of air sacs in the pigeon or birds, the secondary bronchus, ద్వితీయ శ్వాసనాళాలు అన్నవి ఊపిరితిత్తి కుడ్యాల ద్వారా బయటికి చొచ్చుకొని వచ్చి ద్వితీయ శ్వాసనాళాల యొక్క మ్యూకస్ మెంబ్రేన్స్ అన్నవి త్రూ ద డైలేషన్ ఆఫ్ సెకండరీ మ్యూకస్ మెంబ్రేన్స్ ద ఎయిర్ సాక్స్ విల్ బి ఫార్మ్డ్. ద్వితీయ శ్వాసనాళాల యొక్క మ్యూకస్ మెంబ్రేన్స్ అన్నవి ఊపిరితిత్తుల యొక్క పొరల ద్వారా బయటికి చొచ్చుకొని వచ్చి అవి ఎక్స్టెండ్ అయ్యి గాలి గదులుగా ఏర్పడతాయి. ఇలాంటి వాటిని మనం వాయుగోనులు అని చెప్పుకొనవచ్చు. ఇన్ దిస్ డయాగ్రామ్ వీ క్యాన్ క్లియర్లీ అబ్జర్వ్ ది డిఫరెంట్ types air sacs in the bird. Here we can observe anterior air sacs, posterior air sacs, abdominal air sacs, and interclavicle air sacs. In this diagram we can clearly observe the different types of air sacs of the bird. Now we see one by one. Interclavicle air sacs, అంతరజత్రుక వాయుగోని. అంతరజత్రుక వాయుగోని అన్నది దిస్ ఈజ్ సింగిల్ అన్పెయిడ్. ఇది ఏకంగా ఉండే వాయుగోని, ఇది మాత్రమే సింగిల్గా ఉండే వాయుగోని. మిగిలిన అన్ని వాయుగోనులు కూడా జతలుగా ఉండే వాయుగోనులు. సో దట్ ఈస్ ఇంటర్క్లావికల్ ఎయిర్ సాక్, ఇట్ ఈస్ సింగులర్. So we observe the structure of interclavicle air sac, that is somewhat in triangular shape. త్రిభుజాకారాన్ని కలిగిన నిర్మాణాన్ని కలిగిన గాలి గదిగా లేదా గాలి గోనిగా వీటిని మనం చెప్పుకొనవచ్చును. సో ఫ్రమ్ ద ఈచ్ సైడ్ ఆఫ్ ఇంటర్క్లావికల్ ఎయిర్ సాక్స్ దేర్ ఆర్ 2 ట్యూబులార్ ఎయిర్ సాక్స్ విల్ బి అరైజ్డ్. ఇంటర్క్లావికల్ లేదా అంతర్జత్రక వాయుగోని యొక్క ఇరువైపుల నుంచి 2 ట్యూబులార్ యాక్సిలరీ ఎయిర్ సాక్స్ అనే నిర్మాణాలు ఏర్పడతాయి. ఈ ట్యూబులార్ యాక్సిలరీ ఎయిర్ సాక్స్లోని ఒక శాఖ హ్యూమరస్ భుజాస్థిలోనికి, మరొక శాఖ జత్రుక లేదా క్లావికల్లోనికి ప్రవేశిస్తూ ఉంటుంది. రెండవ రకమైన వాయుగోనులు సర్వికల్ ఎయిర్ సాక్స్. దీస్ ఆర్ పెయిడ్ ఎయిర్ సాక్స్. దే ఆర్ ప్లేస్డ్ నియర్ టు ద బేస్ ఆఫ్ ద నెక్ అండ్ దే లై ఫ్రంట్ ఆఫ్ ద లంగ్స్. ఈచ్ సాక్ sends a diverticulum. There are in paid. The diverticulums of the cervical air sacs, they enter into the cervical vertebrae and skull. కాబట్టి వాయునాళాల యొక్క డైవర్టికులమ్స్ అన్నవి సర్వికల్ మెడ భాగంలో ఉండే వర్టెబ్రేలోని వెన్నుపూసలలోనికి, గ్రీవ కశేరుకాలలోనికి, అదేవిధంగా తల భాగంలో ఉండే కపాలంలోనికి ప్రవేశిస్తూ ఉంటాయి. మూడవ రకమైన వాయుగోనులు యాంటీరియర్ థొరాసిక్ ఎయిర్ సాక్స్, పూర్వ ఉరో వాయుగోనులు. A pair of anterior thoracic air sacs lies ventral to the lung. The branches of these anterior thoracic air sacs, they are enter into the pericardium and ribs. పర్శుకలు మరియు హృదయావరణ త్వచంలోనికి వీటి యొక్క శాఖలు విస్తరించినట్లుగా అమరినట్లుగా ఉంటాయి. నాలుగవ రకమైన ఎయిర్ సాక్స్ పోస్టీరియర్ థొరాసిక్ ఎయిర్ సాక్స్, ఉరో వాయుగోనులు. దీస్ ఆర్ ఆల్సో ఇన్ పెయిర్. దే ఆర్ అటాచ్డ్ ఆన్ ద పోస్టీరియర్ రీజన్ ఆఫ్ ది లంగ్ Then abdominal air sacs, udara vayu. These are also paired in number. The air sacs arise from the outer posterior angle of the lung. Now we see the functions of air sacs. Generally, one side of the air sac is attached with the bronchi, and the other hand they are attached with the pneumatic bones. Air sacs communicates with bronchi on the one hand and with the pneumatic cavities bones of the other hand. వాయుగోణులన్నవి ఒక భాగం బ్రాంకై లేదా శ్వాసనాళంతో సంబంధాన్ని కలిగి ఉండి మరొక భాగం అన్నది వాతిలాస్తులతో సంబంధాన్ని కలిగిన గాలి గదుల లాంటి నిర్మాణాలు. నౌ వి సీ ది సమ్ ఆఫ్ ద మేజర్ ఫంక్షన్స్ ఆఫ్ ఎయిర్ సాక్స్. మొట్టమొదటిగా వాయుగోణుల యొక్క విధులను మనం గమనించినట్లయితే గిన ఇవి దేహానికి తేలిక స్వభావాన్ని కలగజేయడంలో ప్రధాన పాత్రను పోషిస్తాయి. దే ప్రొవైడ్ ద లైట్నెస్ టు ది బాడీ. దే యాక్ట్ యాజ్ బెలూన్స్ అండ్ దే ప్రొవైడ్ బయాన్సీ టు ది బాడీ ఆఫ్ ది ఆర్గానిజం. ఇవి బెలూన్స్ లాగా పనిచేస్తూ తేలిక స్వభావాన్ని కలగజేయడం వల్ల పక్షులు గాలిలో సునాయాసంగా తేలియాడడానికి ఎగరడానికి అనుకూలతను ఏర్పరుస్తాయి. నెక్స్ట్, దే ఆర్ యాక్ట్ యాజ్ రెస్పిరేటరీ యాక్సెసరీ రెస్పిరేటరీ ఆర్గాన్స్ అండ్ ఆల్సో దే యాక్ట్ యాజ్ రిజర్వాయర్స్ ఆఫ్ ఎయిర్. అనుబంధ శ్వాసాంగాలుగా పనిచేస్తాయి. అంతేకాకుండా గాలిని నిల్వ చేసుకునే ఆశయాలుగా కూడా పనిచేయడానికి తోడ్పడుతూ ఉండే నిర్మాణాలు. దెన్ ద మెయిన్ ఫంక్షన్ ఆఫ్ దీస్ ఎయిర్ సాక్స్ దట్ ఈస్ డబుల్ రెస్పిరేషన్. పక్షులు గాలిలో ఎగరడానికి దే రిక్వైర్ ఏ రిచ్ అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ ఆక్సిజన్ సో దట్ దీస్ air sacs provide the double respiration. The air sacs supply the oxygen continuing air lung even during expiration also, so that in inspiration, in expiration, in both way the bird can get the oxygenated blood through this air sacs. గాలి గదులు లేదా వాయుగోణులు కలిగి ఉండడం వల్ల పక్షులు అనేటివి నిశ్వాసంలో మరియు ఉచ్ఛ్వాసంలో రెండు ప్రక్రియల్లో కూడా గాలిని లేదా ఆక్సిజనేటెడ్ గాలిని ఆమ్లజనియుత గాలిని అవి సేకరించడానికి అనువుగా ఉంటుంది. నెక్స్ట్, అనదర్ ఫంక్షన్ దట్ ఈస్ రెగ్యులేషన్ ఆఫ్ టెంపరేచర్, ఉష్ణోగ్రత క్రమత. సాధారణంగా పక్షులలో స్వెట్ గ్లాండ్స్, స్వేద గ్రంథులు అన్నటివి లోపించి ఉంటాయి. స్వేద గ్రంథులు ఉష్ణోగ్రత క్రమతను నియంత్రించే ముఖ్యమైన అంగాలుగా చెప్పుకొనవచ్చును. పక్షులలో స్వేద గ్రంథులు లోపించి ఉంటాయి. స్వేద గ్రంథులు లోపించి యొక్క లోటును తీర్చడం కోసం వాయుగోణులు లేదా శ్వాసగోణులు అన్నటివి ఆ క్రియ నిర్వహిస్తూ ఉంటాయి. సో దట్ దే ఆర్ కంపెన్సేటింగ్ ఆర్గాన్స్ టు ది స్వెట్ గ్లాండ్స్. దెన్ బ్యాలెన్సింగ్, సమతుల్యత. వాయుగోణులు అన్న నిర్మాణాలు బాడీ యాక్సిస్, సెంట్రల్ యాక్సిస్కు రెండు వైపులా సమాంతరంగా సమానంగా అమరటం వల్ల దేహం యొక్క బరువును సమతుల్యంగా ఉంచడానికి తోడ్పడే నిర్మాణాలు. ఎయిర్ సాక్స్ ఆర్ అరేంజ్డ్ నైస్లీ ఆన్ ద టూ సైడ్స్ ఆఫ్ ద బాడీ సో దట్ the proper center of gravity maintained for the flight, so that way they are maintaining the balancing while they are flying. Then minimizing the friction, యాంత్రిక ఘర్షణ. వాయుగోణులు లేదా ఎయిర్ సాక్స్ అనే నిర్మాణాలు దే ఎక్స్టెండెడ్ లైక్ ప్యాడ్స్ ఇన్ బిట్వీన్ మజిల్స్. సో ఎయిర్ సాక్స్ and the branchus are inserted between the muscles like pads so that they can reduce the friction during flight. సో కాబట్టి పక్షులు ఎగిరేటప్పుడు కండరాల యొక్క యాంత్రిక ఘర్షణను నియంత్రించడం కోసం ఒక ప్యాడ్స్ మాదిరిగా పనిచేస్తూ కండరాల మధ్య చొచ్చి ఉండి యాంత్రిక ఘర్షణను నియంత్రించడంలో ముఖ్యమైన పాత్రను పోషిస్తూ ఉంటాయి. అంతేకాకుండా ద యాక్ట్ యాజ్ రెజోనేటర్, ధ్వని యొక్క ఉత్పత్తిలో, ప్రతిధ్వని ఉత్పత్తిలో కూడా వీటి యొక్క పాత్ర అతి ముఖ్యమైనదిగా చెప్పుకోవచ్చు. ఎయిర్ సాక్స్ హెల్ప్స్ ఇన్ ఫోర్స్ఫుల్ ఎక్స్పల్షన్ ఆఫ్ ఎయిర్ అండ్ కంట్రోల్ ద పిచ్ ఆఫ్ ద సౌండ్ సో దట్ దే యాక్ట్ యాజ్ రెజోనేటర్. శబ్దాన్ని ఉత్పత్తి చేయడంలో కూడా వీటి యొక్క ముఖ్యమైన పాత్రను మనం గమనించగలం. నౌ వి సీ ద మెకానిజం ఆఫ్ రెస్పిరేషన్ ఇన్ బర్డ్స్. పక్షులలో శ్వాసక్రియ విధానము అన్నది రెండు రకాలుగా మనం గమనించవచ్చు. విశ్రాంతి దశలో ఉన్నప్పుడు జరిగే శ్వాసక్రియ విధానము వేరుగాను, అదేవిధంగా పక్షులు ఎగిరేటప్పుడు జరిగే శ్వాసక్రియ విధానం అన్నది వేరుగాను పక్షులలో మనం గమనించవచ్చు. సాధారణంగా మిగిలిన జీవులలో ఎక్స్పిరేషన్, నిశ్వాసము అనేది ప్యాసివ్ ప్రాసెస్. ఇట్ నాట్ రిక్వైర్డ్ ఎనీ ఎనర్జీ. ఇన్ ద కేస్ ఆఫ్ బర్డ్స్ ద ప్రాసెస్ ఆఫ్ ఎక్స్పిరేషన్, నిశ్వాసము అన్నది కూడా శక్తిని ఉపయోగించుకునే ప్రక్రియ. సో దట్ ఈస్ యాక్టివ్ ప్రాసెస్. సో దిస్ ఈస్ ద మేజర్ డిఫరెన్స్ బిట్వీన్ ది ఎక్స్పిరేషన్ ఆఫ్ బర్డ్ అండ్ అనదర్ organism. So that the expiration process of bird is expensive and it is active process. The breathing mechanism, like it is described as suction pump. Now we see the ventilation at rest. విశ్రాంతి దశలో ఉన్నప్పుడు పక్షిలో జరిగే శ్వాసక్రియ విధానం. Now we see the inspiration, ఉచ్ఛ్వాసం. విశ్రాంతి దశలో ఉన్నప్పుడు the movements of sternum, the alternate rise and fall of the sternum helps. The movements of the sternum is depending upon the intercostal and abdominal muscles. అంటే ఉరోస్థి యొక్క కదలికలు అన్నవి పర్శుకాంతర కండరాలు మరియు ఉదర కండరాల యొక్క కదలికల యొక్క ఆధీనంలో ఉంటాయి. పర్శుకాంతర కండరాలు మరియు ఉదర కండరాల యొక్క కదలికలు అన్నటి ఉరోస్థిని కదిలించడంలో తోడ్పడుతూ ఉంటాయి. వీటి వల్ల it helps to increase the abdominal and thoracic cavity, so that automatically the pressure reduced in the lungs, so that the air drawn into the lungs. So that is the inspiration process in the birds. Then expiration during the rest. Expiration brought about by the movement of thoracic and abdominal muscles, which decrease the thoracic and abdominal cavity. So that in the process of expiration, the muscles that are abdominal muscles and thoracic muscles both are involving. Through the activity of thoracic and abdominal muscles, the process of expiration will occur during the resting period of the bird. Next we see about the process of respiration during the flight. ఎగిరేటప్పుడు పక్షులలో శ్వాసక్రియ విధానం. సాధారణంగా పక్షులు ఎగిరేటప్పుడు స్టెర్నం లేదా ఉరోస్థి అన్నది ఎలాంటి కదలికలను చూపించదు. నిశ్చల స్థితిలో లేదా విశ్రాంతి దశలో ఉన్నప్పుడు స్టెర్నం యొక్క కదలికలు అన్నటివి శ్వాసక్రియను జరపడంలో ముఖ్య పాత్రను పోషిస్తాయి. ఇన్ ద కేస్ ఆఫ్ ఫ్లయింగ్, ద స్టెర్నం ఈజ్ ఇమూవబుల్, ద గోస్ ఇన్ అండ్ గోస్ అవుట్ ఆఫ్ ది ఎయిర్ ఇన్ టు ద లంగ్స్ ఈజ్ డిపెండింగ్ అపాన్ ది ఎలివేషన్ అండ్ డిప్రెషన్ ఆఫ్ ద బ్యాక్, విచ్ ఈజ్ సింక్రొనైజ్డ్ విత్ ది స్ట్రోక్ ఆఫ్ ద వింగ్. కాబట్టి పక్షులలో ఎగిరేటప్పుడు ఉచ్ఛ్వాస నిశ్వాస ప్రక్రియలు అన్నటివి ఎలివేషన్ అండ్ డిప్రెషన్ ఆఫ్ ద బ్యాక్, ఇట్ ఈస్ సింక్రొనైజ్డ్ విత్ ద స్ట్రోక్ ఆఫ్ ద వింగ్. అంటే పక్షుల యొక్క రెక్కల యొక్క కదలికను ఆధారంగా చేసుకుని వాటి యొక్క వెన్నుభాగం యొక్క కదలికల వల్ల పక్షులు ఎగిరేటప్పుడు ఉచ్ఛ్వాసం మరియు నిశ్వాసం అనే ప్రక్రియను మనం గమనించవచ్చు. ఇన్ దిస్ డయాగ్రామ్ వీ క్యాన్ క్లియర్లీ అబ్జర్వ్ ద ప్రాసెస్ ఆఫ్ ఇన్స్పిరేషన్ అండ్ రెస్పిరేషన్. సెకండ్ డయాగ్రామ్ ఈజ్ రిప్రజెంటేషన్ ఆఫ్ బర్డ్ ఆఫ్ ద లంగ్. Here we can clearly observe the inspiration process and expiration process of the bird. In this diagram we can also observe the respiration process of human being and also the respiration process of grasshopper. Here the respiration process occurs through the tracheal respiration, here pulmonary respiration, here is also pulmonary respiration. If the respiration occurs through the lungs, that type of respiration is called as pulmonary respiration. In the case of grasshopper and some insects, the respiration occurs through trachea. This is tracheal respiration. In the case of some another organism, respiration process occurs through gills, particularly in the case of aquatic organism. This type of respiration is called as bronchial respiration. In some organism, the process of respiration occurs through the skin, that is cutaneous respiration. But here the process of respiration occurs in the case of bird through lungs. This is pulmonary respiration. And the lungs are associated with air sacs. This is the peculiar character of the bird. Now we see the efficiency of avian lung. పక్షుల యొక్క ఊపిరితిత్తుల యొక్క కెపాసిటీని మనం గమనిస్తే తగిన ద రెస్పిరేటరీ రేట్ ఆఫ్ ద బర్డ్ ఈజ్ వెరీ హై వెన్ కంపేర్డ్ విత్ అనదర్ ఆర్గానిజమ్స్. దట్ ఈస్ ఇన్ పీజియన్ it is 29 times per minute at rest, as contrasted with the 14 to 20 times per minute in the man. In the case of human being, the contrasting rate, that is 14 to 20 per minute. In the case of birds, that is 29. So that it indicates the avian lung is very efficient than human lung. నౌ వి లెర్న్ అబౌట్ ది మైగ్రేషన్ ఆఫ్ బర్డ్స్. పక్షులలో వలస. ప్రకృతిలో జీవులు సమర్థవంతమైన జీవనాన్ని గడపడం కోసం, వాతావరణంలో సంభవించే మార్పులను అధిగమిస్తూ తమ జాతి మనుగడను కొనసాగించడం కోసం కొన్ని జాతులకు సంబంధించిన పక్షులు సుదూర ప్రాంతాలకు ప్రయాణిస్తూ ఉంటాయి. ఈ విధంగా సుదూర ప్రాంతాలకు ప్రయాణించడం వల్ల అక్కడ అనుకూలమైన వాతావరణ పరిస్థితులను పొందగలిగి తమ జాతి మనుగడను కొనసాగించడాన్ని మనం గమనించగలుగుతాం. ఈ విధంగా పక్షులు ఒక ప్రాంతం నుంచి మరొక ప్రాంతానికి ప్రసరించే లేదా ప్రయాణించే ఈ ప్రక్రియను మనం మైగ్రేషన్ లేదా వలస అని చెప్పుకోవచ్చు. సాధారణంగా జీవులు ముఖ్యంగా ఆహారం కోసం లేదా ఆశ్రమం కోసం మరియు వాటి యొక్క ప్రత్యుత్పత్తి అవసరాల కోసం ఒక ప్రాంతం నుంచి మరొక ప్రాంతానికి అవి ప్రయాణం చేస్తూ ఉంటాయి. ఈ విధంగా ఆహారం కోసం కానీ, ఆవాసం కోసం కానీ, లేదా ప్రత్యుత్పత్తి అవసరాల కోసం కానీ, లేదా తమ జాతిని కొనసాగించుకోవడం, మనుగడ కొనసాగించడం కానీ జీవులన్నవి ఒక ప్రాంతం నుంచి మరొక ప్రాంతానికి ప్రయాణించే ప్రక్రియని వలస అని చెప్పుకొనవచ్చు. Now we see the definition of migration. Migration can be defined as a periodic movement of birds from one place to another place to get the advantages of the favorable conditions. అనువైన వాతావరణం కోసం పక్షులు ఒక ప్రాంతం నుంచి మరొక ప్రదేశానికి నిర్ణీత సమయంలో ప్రయాణించడాన్ని వలస అంటారు. The word migration is derived from a Latin word that is migrare. It means travel. మైగ్రేషన్ అనే పదము మైగ్రేర్ అనే ఒక లాటిన్ పదం నుంచి తీసుకోవడం జరిగింది. ఈ పదానికి అర్థం టు ట్రావెల్, ప్రయాణించడం అని అర్థము. పక్షులు వలస ప్రదర్శించడానికి ముఖ్యమైన కారణాలు, కాజెస్ ఆఫ్ మైగ్రేషన్. నెంబర్ 1, ఎన్విరాన్మెంటల్ స్టిములై. పరిసరాలలో వచ్చే మార్పులు అన్నవి పక్షులను వలసపోయేటట్లు ప్రేరేపిస్తాయి. గొనాడల్ స్టిములై. డెవలప్డ్ గొనాడ్స్ స్టిములేట్స్ ద బర్డ్స్ టు మైగ్రేట్. Thyroid hypothesis. Thyroid hormones produce necessary changes of the metabolism so that these changes can stimulate the bird to migrate to the some other places. Then anti-pituitary hormones regulate the instinct of bird migrate so that the hormones of anti-pituitary gland, these are also stimulate the birds to migrate some other places. Metabolic hypothesis. Accumulation of fat, increasing of calorific value, so this is condition is also stimulating the bird to migrate some other places. So these are the some of the major causes which stimulate the birds to migrate. Some another causes we can see here which stimulate the birds to migrate to the different regions, that is early spring. This environmental condition is also stimulating the bird for migration. Long day length, it is also stimulates, and development of gonads, fat deposition, courtship behavior, nothing but mating behavior. These are the some of the situations which stimulate the birds to migrate. Now we see the two types of migrations. One is immigration, another one is immigration. Emigration and immigration. Emigration means మైగ్రేషన్ ఫ్రమ్ ద ఒరిజినల్ ప్లేస్. స్వస్థలాల నుంచి ఇతర ప్రాంతాలకు వలస వెళ్ళడాన్ని ఎమిగ్రేషన్. అదేవిధంగా ఇతర ప్రాంతాల నుంచి తిరిగి స్వస్థలాలకు మళ్ళీ చేరుకునేదాన్ని ఎమిగ్రేషన్. కాబట్టి వలసలో 2 రకాల ప్రయాణాలను మనం గమనించగలుగుతాం. నెంబర్ 1 ఎమిగ్రేషన్ అండ్ నెంబర్ 2 దట్ ఈస్ ఇమిగ్రేషన్. ఎమిగ్రేషన్ అనే ప్రక్రియలో పక్షులు స్వస్థలాల నుంచి ఇతర ప్రాంతాలకు ప్రయాణిస్తాయి. అదేవిధంగా ఎమిగ్రేషన్ అనే ప్రక్రియలో పక్షులు ఇతర ప్రాంతాల నుండి స్వస్థలాలకు తిరుగు ప్రయాణం, దీన్ని ఇమిగ్రేషన్ అని మనం చెప్పుకొనవచ్చును. నౌ వి సీ ద కైండ్స్ ఆఫ్ ఏవియన్ మైగ్రేషన్. పక్షులలో వలస యొక్క రకాలు. వివిధ రకాల పక్షులు వివిధ రకాల వలసను ప్రదర్శిస్తూ ఉంటాయి. నౌ వి సీ డిఫరెంట్ టైప్స్ ఆఫ్ ఏవియన్ మైగ్రేషన్స్ ఆర్ కైండ్స్ ఆఫ్ ఏవియన్ మైగ్రేషన్. నెంబర్ 1 లాటిట్యూడినల్ మైగ్రేషన్ లేదా అక్షాంశాల వలస. ఇలాంటి వలసలో పక్షులు అక్షాంశాలను దాటుతూ, అంటే ఉత్తర ప్రాంతాల నుంచి దక్షిణ ప్రాంతాలకు మరియు దక్షిణ ప్రాంతాల నుంచి ఉత్తర ప్రాంతాలకు, ఈ విధంగా భూగోళం పైన ఉండే అక్షాంశాలను క్రాస్ చేస్తూ వాటిని అధిగమిస్తూ వాటి యొక్క వలసను ప్రదర్శిస్తూ ఉంటాయి. ద మైగ్రేషన్ ఆఫ్ బర్డ్స్ ఫ్రమ్ నార్త్ టు సౌత్ అండ్ వైస్ వర్సా, సౌత్ టు north, so that in this type of migration they are cross over the latitudes of the globe. So here some of the birds which shows the latitudinal migration, they are American golden flower and some Siberian birds. So Siberian birds, they are migrate from Siberia to our southern India, particularly in Andhra Pradesh we can observe, and Nelapattu bird sanctuary and Pulicat Lake, here is also the Siberian birds, they are migratory birds. So these are the best example for latitudinal migrations. So here we can observe the Siberian birds which migrates from Siberia to southern